The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the organic wine company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
There's a terrible hurricane hitting Puerto Rico today. There are no doubt going to be many people dead, tragically. Massive destruction. It's running across the Caribbean. And, I spent some time this morning watching and listening to the coverage of this storm on a couple of different networks. And I didn't hear anything about how the Bush administration wants to defund, actually already has defunded our new weather satellites. In fact, there's a whole set of new weather satellites that were being put together. Excuse me, the Trump administration. What did I say? The Trump administration wants to do this, and there were like a couple of satellites that were like, one of them was already built, and the Trump administration ordered the thing destroyed. I mean, shredded, or whatever you do with a satellite. Because, it wasn't that they didn't want to spend the money on shooting the thing into outer space. That money was already appropriated. It was that they didn't want the weather information because it proves global warming. And as a result, we're going to have less accurate prediction of when and where hurricanes are going to hit us. I mean, this is how insane these people are. But the media is afraid to call them out for that, because the minute that they come right out and say, these people are nuts, or they are totally lying to all of us because they're taking all this money from the fossil fuel industry. The minute any reporter says that will be the last minute that reporter ever gets a Republican to come on their show. And that's the power, that the Republican Party holds over the media. And not only that, of course, the minute any reporter for any major television networks, commercial television networks, says that, that's going to be the instance the BP and Koch Industries and all these other companies, these other Massey Energy, the fossil fuel companies start saying, hey, I think we'll just pull our ads from the television network. And the network will lose millions of dollars because some commentator, in a slip of the tongue, told the truth. That's how screwed up our media landscape is in the United States, and why this right here, Free Speech TV, is so vitally important. I want to thank you for your response yesterday. Last week we were getting like $1,000 days, $2,000 days. I think our top day was almost a little short of $3,000. We really need to hit $10,000 every day. And in order to make our goal, if we're going to do this over 3 weeks, and so we're like way behind. And yesterday we raised almost $11,000. That was great. A lot of people, calling up with small gifts, $20, $30, $50, $50. What does it cost to go to a restaurant these days? And you just take one night and say, tonight, instead of going to the restaurant, I'm going to keep Free Speech TV on the air. And, for some of us, that'll be $30. And so for some of us, it'll be $80. Or, for some of us, it'll be $10 at McDonald's or whatever. Whatever it is, when enough people do it, and there are a lot of people watching this program right now, it adds up. So today we need to hit that, and exceed, frankly. It would be great to have a $13,000 or $14,000 day, but at the very least, another $10,000 day. So if you have not yet called 877-378-8669, a major contribution to Free Speech TV, joined Free Speech TV, become a member of Free Speech TV, become part of this family, please do so now. 877-378-8669, or you can do it online at freespeech.org. With an $80 contribution, you get a Free Speech TV water bottle and the Stamp Stampede stamp from Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's that Ben was last Monday, he showed us, on the program. And it's a really cool little self-inking stamper, but it's all filled out with anti-big pharma stuff. That's with the $80 gift. With a $120 gift, you get that. You get the water bottle and the pharma stamp. Plus, you get a copy of Mike Papantonio's new novel, and this is literally just out. I mean, they're just shipping them from Amazon right now, and other booksellers. You get Mike Papantonio's book, Law and Vengeance. Great novel. It's a legal thriller. With a $240 gift, or $20 a month for a year, you get that, Papantonio's book, plus Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, the book about, Germany. You've heard me describe these before. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month, you get Mike Papantonio's book, Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, plus an autographed copy of my book, Unequal Protection, which is the book about corporate personhood. And if you ever want the details on corporate personhood, or you want to have discuss it with somebody, or just, you have somebody who you think might be interested, this makes a great gift, a birthday gift, a holiday gift, Christmas gift, whatever. With a $480 gift, you get all of those books, the, Pap's and Milton Mayer's and mine, plus Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean, which is an absolutely brilliant book about how the right-wing billionaires have taken over our country and what we can do about it. It's actually in some ways even an optimistic book. With a $1,000 gift, we can meet in Portland, Oregon, or Washington, D.C. and have a meal. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. If you find this network of value, please keep it alive. Please help keep this network going. We really need to make our goal.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you, broadcasting live today from Portland, Oregon. And the hits keep coming in with regard to Donald Trump, Donald Trump's speech to the pretender in chief, the vote loser in chief, right? The popular vote loser. Keep coming in. The analysis of that. Obamacare is going on. There's this terrible hurricane cranking its way across the Caribbean toward. It's over Puerto Rico right now, and so the TV networks, to the extent that they can do it, are going to probably go in full out disaster porn mode. Weather disaster porn mode nonstop. Will they be talking about why there's 6% more moisture in the air, which makes these rainfalls massively huger? Will they be talking about why there's this thing is just didn't my Anyway, will they be talking about why the oceans are so much warmer, which is the fuel for a hurricane? At least the weather forecasters, they can kind of say, the warm oceans are fuel for hurricanes, without saying, and the oceans are warmer because of global warming. In fact, 90% of the heat that has been trapped in the earth as a result of the increased greenhouse gas levels in the atmosphere, 90% of that heat has gone into our oceans. And the heat from an ocean rises into the air and causes, as air rises, the cool air around it settles, and pretty soon you get this, convection pattern going, and you get a little low pressure system in the middle of it, and it turns into a hurricane. So you've got that. I mean, there is a lot going on. I wanted to talk about the Equifax thing too. Charles Sauer is going to be with us in the third hour of our program, but other than that, it's just going to be you and me. If there is anything that you think that is of particular consequence or that we're missing, feel free to give us a shout. But to start with the UN, just to kind of close this up, because we did talk somewhat about Donald Trump's speech to the UN yesterday, but it was most of our conversation was largely focused on his, threatening to annihilate or devastate or whatever the word was, North Korea, to wipe them off the map. You know, and I know, and the rest of the world knows, and North Korea knows that if he did that, it would not be limited to North Korea. If he did that with the kind of instantaneous high-powered weapons like nuclear weapons, that would create a nuclear disaster for South Korea and for China. And if he did it with conventional weapons, the time involved to get them there would probably not, well, certainly would not be enough to prevent Kim Jong-un from launching his missiles that are, and missiles and mortars and cannons and, all those kinds of things that are in the mountainsides overlooking the city of Seoul. 10 million people sitting there, 20 million in the whole larger region, just sitting there like sitting ducks, just 20 miles away from these things, which is an easy lob. And there's no way to stop them. This isn't like the kind of missile technology that you can stop. So when John Kennedy addressed the United Nations, when Jimmy Carter addressed the United Nations, when Barack Obama addressed the United Nations, the position that an American president takes tells you a lot about A, what that president thinks America is all about, and B, what America is all about, right? Because we elected that president, and because the president is saying what he's saying, particularly in a speech at the UN. This was one that Trump read off a teleprompter, so this was something that clearly was vetted by his generals. By the way, have we experienced a military coup? We now have generals running our country. It's has this just kind of slid by everybody? But I digress. So here you have, typically when these past presidents have addressed the United Nations, they were operating out of a sense of America is that shining city on the hill. America is the hope of the world. America is here for the other countries of the world. We're part of a global family. We are our brother's keepers. And what Trump essentially said is, nah, that's not what we're all about. We're about us, and you should be about you. So Trump was basically, promoting the ideology, the thought process, the philosophy that the libertarians have, which is, I got mine, screw everybody else, or the intellectual variation on that Milton Friedman and whatnot, put forward is if everybody acts in their own most selfish mode, that somehow magically that will organize the economy in a way that works for everybody. And, if everybody was entirely altruistic, if everybody had as their principal value, personal value, if they had as their principal value fairness, then and an understanding of fairness, which, by the way, even children, even pre-language, 2-year-old kids, not particularly articulate, you put them in a room, and if one kid has a disproportionate number of toys, the rest of them react like, what? What's going on here? We've been doing these studies since the 50s, right? And we know, fairness is just like wired into us, except not all of us. There are a few people who just don't have that fairness thing, because in order to understand fairness, that requires you to understand empathy, or to have empathy, the ability to identify with another person and feel in yourself what you imagine they are feeling, what you believe they are feeling based on what you know and what you see and what you hear from them. And the people who can't do that are called sociopaths. They lack the ability to do that. And that's the basis of the whole libertarian philosophy of I've got mine. And that's the sales pitch that Donald Trump made to the world yesterday. Completely different from any other president in the past. And this is what Dianne Feinstein had to say about it. And I thought this was absolutely brilliant. She said, the goals, this is the senator from California.
This was just released. She said the goals of the United Nations are to foster peace and promote global cooperation. Today, this was yesterday, of course, the president used it as a stage to threaten war. He missed an opportunity to present any positive actions the UN could take with respect to North Korea, and he launched a diatribe against Iran, offering, again, no pathway forward. By suggesting he would revisit and possibly cancel the Iran nuclear agreement, he greatly escalated the danger that we face both from Iran and North Korea. I mean, what nation would negotiate with the United States when the agreements we reach with other countries are so easily undermined, said Senator Feinstein. She added, Trump's bombastic threat to destroy North Korea and his refusal to prevent any positive pathways forward on the many global challenges we face are severe disappointments. He aims to unify the world through tactics of intimidation, but in reality, he only further isolates, and here's the real tragedy, further isolates the United States. And that really is the tragedy, is that, Donald Trump, in pitching the Ayn Rand worldview, the America first, I got mine, and I'm, depending on the day of the week, proudly call myself a nationalist, as it were, in that I want what's best for my country. But I also understand that we're part of a world community, and we got to work this stuff out.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with your calls and more of the news of the day after this. And welcome back. Hang on just a second here. I gotta get my, there we go. Let's see here. John, watching Free Speech TV in Destrayan, Louisiana. Am I saying that right, John?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what's up?
Well, I was kind of wondering if we don't do something about North Korea, they're going to continue, and eventually each one of their dictators has gotten worse. Well, what is your solution? Well,
define worse. I mean, 40 years, 50 years ago, North Korea was...
They've gotten more. They started their nuclear program, and it's gotten bigger and bigger. Does that mean worse to you, or does that mean better to you?
Well, I didn't know if you were talking about, like, their standard of living has actually radically improved over the last 40 years, and they've gone from mostly a peasant agrarian economy to, I don't know if you saw the CNN special this week, but, downtown Seoul actually looks like a modern city in many regards, or not Seoul, Pyongyang. It looks like a fairly modern city these days. But the question that I would ask you, John, is if North Korea gets nuclear weapons, and, they already have them, but let's say that they can put together a deliverable ICBM with a nuclear warhead. Mm-hmm. In fact, let me back this up a little bit. There are some nations, this was the big fear about communism that was used to sell us the Vietnam War in the 60s and 70s, was that communism was an evangelistic political philosophy and economic philosophy, and that we were afraid of that because people might buy into it, people might like it, the whole domino theory. So we had to stop it militarily because it was a toxic evangelical philosophy. Much of the world looks at the United States and says, you guys are pitching your idea of democracy to the rest of the world. Saudi Arabia said it right up front to us. We don't like your form of government. We have no interest in democracy. Stop trying to sell it to us. Just leave us alone. Let us be. North Korea, to the best of my knowledge, and I may be wrong on this, John, but to the best of my knowledge, other than the possibility of reunification with South Korea, which is something that would be negotiated like East and West Germany was, North Korea doesn't seem to be trying to conquer the world. I don't think Kim Jong-un wants a single extra mile of territory. I think he's got his hands full. So what is the threat of North Korea?
Hang on a second. Okay. I see your point there. That clearly makes sense to me. What has the United States done to make North Korea want to continue their nuclear program? What has the United States done?
They froze their program in the mid '80s with Bill Clinton. They froze the program. We basically paid them to freeze the program, and they unfroze the program literally the day after George W. Bush gave his Axis of Evil speech and identified Iraq, Iran, and North Korea. And at that point, they said, "Holy cow!" This was before he had invaded Iraq. And then, a few months later, when he invaded Iraq, Kim is going, "Boy, good thing I started that nuclear program, and I better get that little thing going full blast as fast as I can." And because that's the only thing that's going to prevent it. I think this is purely reactive. I think that they think that they're defending themselves. Now, again, I might be wrong, but I think I'm a pretty good observer of this. John, thanks for the call. Great to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Valerie with Free Speech TV. We're proud to provide you with independent, unfiltered news and documentaries. And as our valued viewer, you can help us continue bringing Free Speech TV well into the future. Join our Pearly Gate Rebels, our planned giving program. Your gift of any size will help ensure democracy endures through an informed citizenry. You can donate property, money, or assets. It's easy. My spouse and I are proud Pearly Gate Rebels. We're doing our part to ensure that Free Speech TV will be here to deliver thought-provoking news and information well into the future. Join us. Call 877-378-8669 or email me at valerie@freespeech.org. Rebel against media owned by billionaires and become one of our Pearly Gate Rebels today.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And let's see, there were a couple of other things I wanted to get into. Here we go. The Obamacare repeal. This morning I tuned into MSNBC for a little bit. As I was being out here on the West Coast, of course, it was about 4 o'clock in the morning when I woke up, a little after 4 o'clock in the morning. And local time, which is 7 a.m. East Coast time, which is when I normally wake up, and more or less. And so, I thought, okay, I don't think I'm going to get back to sleep. So I flipped on Morning Joe on Sirius XM on my phone and listened for a little while. And they had Bill Cassidy on there, the senator from Louisiana, who is the co-author of the Cassidy-Graham bill, although he kept adding in Ron Johnson's name and Dean Heller's name. Kept calling it Graham Cassidy Heller Johnson. I'm not sure if he's trying to spread the blame around or the praise around, but I strongly suspect it's the former, not the latter. But this is, Jimmy Kimmel last night on TV, and I didn't see this, but I've read all this. It's all over the internet. Basically, he had Bill Cassidy on his show way back, 6 months ago or so. And Jimmy Kimmel, of course, his son was born with a congenital heart defect, and it cost, or would have cost him and his family hundreds of thousands, maybe more, to have his son's life saved. And now his son's going to grow up fine and have a great life because they closed the hole in his heart or whatever the defect was. But, Kimmel was like, at the time that happened, and I'm guessing probably you remember this, or if you don't, just this quick recap. Kimmel went on TV, and in fact, he kind of broke up talking about it. And he said, he's not normally all that political, but in terms of the future and politics and healthcare policy and all that kind of thing, he thinks that, anything that we should do, that every child in America who's born with a heart defect should have the same great treatment and care that his son had, as a result of his having, top-of-the-line health insurance as a multimillionaire television star. And he had Bill Cassidy on his show. And it was Bill Cassidy who said, hey, let's call that the Kimmel rule. I'm down with that. I'm all in favor of that. So now Bill Cassidy, this Republican from Louisiana, so now Bill Cassidy comes out with this piece of legislation that is outrageous, you know, and he's got Graham and he's got Ron Johnson from Wisconsin on this thing, and I mean he's trying to expand it. He's trying to pretend it's more than, and Dean Heller from Nevada trying to pretend that it's more than it is. But and it was weird because, you know, Joe and Mika were pretty much, I mean, they weren't going to call him out because they can't, you know, TV shows that require big name guests, which pretty much all the TV shows do. That's pretty much the model now. Know that they can't actually call their guests liars. They can't actually confront their guests. They can't point out they can't, if they make a guest look like too much of a fool, that guest will never come back, which means that show is going to be out of business. It's not how television should be run. It's not how I run this program. You know, when I can think of a number of different examples from John Bolton to several others who, you know, I just, you know, called them out to the point that they just refused to come on the program anymore, including some politicians, Steve King among them. But you know, they can't do that. They don't do that on any of the television networks. And so here's Cassidy talking about, well, everybody's going to have access. And I kept waiting for Joe or Mika to say, well, you know, yeah, the homeless guy downstairs has access to a Bentley. I mean, he can walk down to the Bentley dealership and walk in if he doesn't smell too bad, walk in and or look too bad. And or maybe even if he does, you know, if you know, he can walk in and sit in a Bentley. He has access to it. It doesn't mean he can own it. It doesn't mean he can use it. I mean, having access to health care is a whole different thing than being able to afford it. The guy can't afford the Bentley, and I kept waiting, and it simply never came. So there's this new study out from Avalere Health that just lays this thing out. You know what this bill is going to do. And what it's going to, and by the way, if any of these members of the Senate, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Rob Portman, or John McCain, represent you, you may want to call their Senate offices right now and let them know, because these are the possible swing votes on this thing that could kill it. But Arizona would lose $11 billion. Alaska would lose $1 billion, which doesn't sound as much as $11 billion, but the population of Alaska is a lot smaller than Arizona. Ohio would receive $9 billion less. And John Kasich, the governor of Ohio, who's a screaming right-winger, but tries to pretend he's a moderate on television, he's actually come out against this. Maine would get $1 billion less, so you might want to remind Susan Collins of that. And Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, she said, well, I don't know, you know, I'm trying to figure it out. Well, West Virginia gets $1 billion less. And again, West Virginia, not a hugely populous state. That's a heck of a lot of money for West Virginia. So this is a good time, and I think a good opportunity to be contacting those people and saying, hey, wait a minute, you know, this is not a good idea. This whole piece of legislation of doing away with Obamacare. Stop.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
So a lot on the table so far, and a heck of a lot more to come as we go through the hours of the program. We'll pick up your calls right after. There's a terrible hurricane hitting Puerto Rico today. There are no doubt going to be many people dead, tragically. Massive destruction. It's running across the Caribbean. And, you know, I spent some time this morning watching and listening to the coverage of this storm on a couple of different networks. And I didn't hear anything about how the Bush administration wants to defund, actually already has defunded our new weather satellites. In fact, there's a whole set of new weather satellites that were being put together. Excuse me, the Trump administration. What did I say? The Trump administration wants to do this. And there were like a couple of satellites that were like, one of them was already built, and the Trump administration ordered the thing destroyed. I mean, shredded.
or whatever you do with the satellite. Because, it wasn't that they didn't want to spend the money on shooting the thing into outer space. That money was already appropriated. It was that they didn't want the weather information because it proves global warming. And as a result, we're going to have less accurate prediction of when and where hurricanes are going to hit us. I mean, this is how insane these people are. But the media is afraid to call them out for that, because the minute that they come right out and say, these people are nuts, or they are totally lying to all of us because they're taking all this money from the fossil fuel industry. The minute any reporter says that will be the last minute that reporter ever gets a Republican to come on their show. And that's the power, that the Republican Party holds over the media. And not only that, of course, the minute any reporter for any major television networks, commercial television networks, says that, that's going to be the instance the BP and Koch Industries and all these other companies, these other Massey Energy, the fossil fuel companies start saying, hey, I think we'll just pull our ads from the television network. And the network will lose millions of dollars because some commentator, in a slip of the tongue, told the truth. That's how screwed up our media landscape is in the United States, and why this right here, Free Speech TV, is so vitally important. I want to thank you for your response yesterday. Last week we were getting like $1,000 days, $2,000 days. I think our top day was almost a little short of $3,000. We really need to hit $10,000 every day, and in order to make our goal, if we're going to do this over 3 weeks, and so we're like way behind. And yesterday we raised almost $11,000. That was great. A lot of people, calling up with small gifts, $20, $30, $50, $50. What does it cost to go to a restaurant these days? And you just take one night and say, tonight, instead of going to the restaurant, I'm going to keep Free Speech TV on the air. And, for some of us, that'll be $30. And so for some of us, it'll be $80. Or, for some of us, it'll be $10 at McDonald's or whatever. Whatever it is, when enough people do it, and there are a lot of people watching this program right now, it adds up. So today we need to hit that, and exceed, frankly. It would be great to have a $13,000 or $14,000 day, but at the very least, another $10,000 day. So if you have not yet called 877-378-8669 and made your contribution to Free Speech TV, joined Free Speech TV, become a member of Free Speech TV, become part of this family, please do so now. 877-378-8669, or you can do it online at freespeech.org. With an $80 contribution, you get a Free Speech TV water bottle and the Stamp Stampede stamp from Ben Cohen of Ben & Jerry's. That Ben was, last Monday, he showed us, on the program. And it's a really cool little self-inking stamper, but it's all filled out with anti-big pharma stuff. That's with the $80 gift. With a $120 gift, you get that. You get the water bottle and the pharma stamp. Plus, you get a copy of Mike Papantonio's new novel, and this is literally just out. They're just shipping them from Amazon right now, and other booksellers. You get Mike Papantonio's book, Law and Vengeance. Great novel. It's a legal thriller. With a $240 gift, or $20 a month for a year, you get that, Papantonio's book, plus Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, the book about, Germany. You've heard me describe these before. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month, you get Mike Papantonio's book, Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, plus an autographed copy of my book, Unequal Protection, which is the book about corporate personhood. And if you ever want the details on corporate personhood, or you want to have discuss it with somebody, or just, you have somebody who you think might be interested, this makes a great gift, a birthday gift, a holiday gift, Christmas gift, whatever. With a $480 gift, you get all of those books, the, Pap's and Milton Mayer's and mine, plus Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean, which is an absolutely brilliant book about how the right-wing billionaires have taken over our country and what we can do about it. It's actually, in some ways, even an optimistic book. With a $1,000 gift, we can meet in Portland, Oregon, or Washington, D.C., and have a meal. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. If you find this network of value, please keep it alive. Please help keep this network going. We really need to make our goal.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you live from Portland, Oregon. I'm so excited. My youngest is getting married this Saturday to her longtime girlfriend. They've been living together for years, bought a house together, have a dog. They're going to be adopting. I mean, just all kinds of, it's wonderful. And Louise and I are here, and friends of ours are here from Vermont and from all over the place. It's just great. So, my apologies, since we're doing a remote broadcast, if our audio or video quality isn't exactly what it should be, but we're trying out a brand new Comrec system, and actually I think we're doing a pretty good job here. But I wanted to talk just a little bit more about North Korea, and then pick up your phone calls here. The name of the CNN documentary that I watched from the hotel room in Frankfurt Saturday night was on CNN International. It was titled Secret State, Inside North Korea. And in fact, I think it was Pat Sweeney put a link to the YouTube of it over on our chat room. You can find our chat room. It's free. It's and there's not even ads or anything. It's over at thomhartmann.com. And I strongly recommend watching it. I didn't watch the whole thing. I fell asleep right toward the end of it because it was on like at, I don't know, I got into Frankfurt in the airport around 1 o'clock in the morning and probably fell asleep around 1:40. But it was, it surprised me a lot. I mean, I learned a lot about North Korea. And one of the things that I think that Americans don't understand or don't think about is, if you're old enough to remember the Vietnam era, or for that matter, any part, from the McCarthy era forward, from the 1950s all the way to the fall of the Soviet Union, if you're old enough to remember that, you know what I'm talking about just from experience. And if you're not old enough to remember that, you probably have heard about this, and if you take any history classes, you'll certainly learn about it. And that is that the reason that first of all, that communism essentially was not a nihilistic political philosophy or economic philosophy. In other words, it wasn't a death cult, essentially. The whole point of communism was for everybody to have housing, for everybody to have medical care, for everybody to have food, for everybody to have a job, for everybody to have, the opportunity to live life in a positive and favorable way. That was the theory, right? It's not actually how it worked out, although I've known many people over my lifetime, and particularly during the year that I lived in Germany, who have lived under both, the communist East Germany and the Western West Germany, and who would say, East Germans, who would say, it wasn't all that bad. Yeah, we had to wait in line for food sometimes, but, nobody freaked out if they got sick. Nobody freaked out if, you never had to worry about finding an apartment or whatever. But the point is that because communism excluded the possibility of big corporations, right? The state ran all the businesses. You had this huge corporate, the entire corporate machine in the United States, the entire capitalist machine in the United States, from the banks to the manufacturers to the politicians that they own, were all saying, "Oh, we can't have communism." And see, of course, communism was an evangelical philosophy, right? Karl Marx wrote this thing, and he said, if only everybody would do it, right? Evangelistic things always started out, if only everybody would, right? So if only everybody would adopt this way of living, then life would be a paradise. And as I said, it didn't turn out. This is not a sales pitch for communism. I'm trying to make a point here about evangelism. And this is a really important point when you think about North Korea. So we went to war in South Vietnam and North Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia illegally. We went to war to stop communism. It was a proxy war with the Soviet Union, arguably, and China. China, Mao had taken over China with communism, and the Soviet Union had a slightly different kind of communism. And neither one of them were really the kind of communism that Karl Marx was pitching, but whatever. They were evangelical, and they were trying to spread their communism around the world. It had come to Cuba. We were freaked out about that. There were countries in Central and South America that were flirting with the idea of maybe not communism, but something halfway there. And so because it was evangelical, we viewed the Soviet Union, and they had the greatest power. China was just a third world country for all practical purposes. But we viewed these communist countries, North Vietnam, for example, as actual threats because they could evangelize Americans. They could convince Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, and yes, I know there's still a debate about whether they were even guilty, but they could convince Americans to say, you know, America should become like the Soviet Union, and I'm going to work toward that kind of thing. You know, because it was evangelical, the fear in the United States was that they would evangelize our people. Similarly, the fear of the Soviet Union, because they saw capitalism as a corrupt system that produces poverty and suffering, and people don't have access to health care, and people are homeless, and their lives get wiped out, and there's no guaranteed jobs, and no guaranteed health care, and no guaranteed education, all that kind of stuff that was all there and free in the communist countries. The communists viewed us as a threat, and we were evangelical, right? We've got Freedom House, and we've got all these other right-wing organizations or these neoconservative organizations funded in many cases by the government, by our own government, plus our State Department outreaches. And so they viewed us as evangelical and therefore as a threat. I would argue that the biggest danger with regard to Wahhabism slash what Donald Trump would refer to as radical Islamic terrorism is its evangelical nature. The fact that it's evangelized, reaching around the world and trying to convert people to its way of thinking and its way of life. And similarly, they would argue, and in fact, I would even argue that at a certain level and for slightly different reasons, that certain types of toxic fundamentalist Christianity, the types that want to control women's bodies, the types that want to refuse to offer service to gay people, the types that use Christianity to justify racism and sexism and misogyny, because they're evangelical, that they're toxic and dangerous. So just consider that frame for a minute, that it's the evangelism of a particular society. See, I have no problem with a society saying, we have the best way of life on earth for us, right? Because this was, I mean, you go back and you read Peter Farb, you know, in First Contact with Native Americans back in the late 1600s, or in the mid 1600s in the United States. And every community he came across, their word for human or person or man was considered the name of their language. In other words, you know, I am Apache, because Apache is human, right? Or whatever the word may be. And I may be wrong about Apache, but generally speaking, that was the case. And so, as long as we say, this is my way and I like it for me, that's fine. But when we start to say, this is my way, I like it for me, it's the best way, it's the only way, you should have this way, and if you don't have this way, I'm going to bomb you, which is what we did with Vietnam. Right? It's what we've done around the world for years and years. It's what we've done in less violent ways, but arguably just as destructive. It's what we did with Chile. It's what we did with Argentina. It's what we did with Central America during the Reagan administration. We have done it over and over and over again. So in this kind of thought cloud that I just shared with you, of all the different dimensions, whether they're political / economic, communism versus capitalism, or whether they're religious, you know, evangelical Christianity, evangelical Islam, or, you know, the more toxic versions of evangelical Christianity and Islam. Those are the things that can make a country dangerous. You'll recall the German belt buckles during World War II. Hitler's army, their belt buckles said, Gott mit uns, God with us. And they believed it. Or the soldiers did, you know, I'm fighting for God, right? The Crusades, we're fighting for God. So, put all that in like one little cloud here and set it off to the side. And now consider North Korea. How does North Korea represent a threat to us? They don't have a philosophy that they're trying to sell to us. It's a kingdom with a king, basically. I mean, it's a feudal society. The Kim family basically owns the country and owns all the people, just like feudal serfs were owned by the feudal lords. He's not trying to export it, not trying to sell it to anybody. He's not trying to convert, you know, other than the possibility of merging with South Korea, which is kind of an amorphous thing. But basically, it's not evangelical. He's not trying to expand his territory. You'll recall Hitler's first thing was we need more living room, more breathing room, more room for good Germans. And so he took the Sudetenland, the part of northern Czechoslovakia, as I recall. And then, in 39 invaded Poland, and then we were off to the races. But it was all about expanding Greater Germany. We did the same thing. President Polk did it in the 1840s. Abraham Lincoln railed against the Mexican-American War. We did the same thing in the late 1890s, 1889, I think it was, that William Randolph Hearst said to Frederick Remington, who was down in Cuba, the USS Maine blew up, right? And said, if you can get me the photos, I'll get you the war. And we got the Spanish-American War as a result of that. Because, hey, we're trying to expand our sphere of influence. Well, I don't see North Korea doing that. So it seems to me that they don't, frankly, represent a threat to us. They don't represent an ideological threat, a philosophical threat, an economic threat, a religious threat. But with nuclear weapons, they could do a lot of damage if we attacked them. It appears to me that everything they're trying to do is defensive. And I don't know why we're not having this conversation in our media.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with your calls in just a moment. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And I'm sorry, my computer just logged me out of my call screen software, so I've got to log in. And it's going to take me just a moment. So, by the way, if I could add, if you're watching us on Free Speech TV, please consider helping out with the fundraising program that's going on right now. It is a very big deal. And if you're listening to me on one of our Pacifica stations or our nonprofit stations, or Progressive Voices or some of our other stations that may carry this content, please give them a shout too. Okay, I got my call screen software up. Rick in Weston, West Virginia. Hey, Rick, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I was just going down my list here. Now, Trump never served. He's got 5 deferments, and from what I understand, that his doctor used somebody else's x-rays for them so-called bone spurs. And I'd love to see a school transcript.
That's a reasonable assumption.
He's too smart. Obama, he never served, but he was highly intelligent. Bush II, he was in the Air Guard, which was hard to get into, but he didn't show up for his overseas physical. Basically, he was AWOL. And he wasn't a particularly good student, from what I understand. Now, Clinton, he never served, but I believe he was a Rhodes Scholar. It seems to me that
Yes.
I agree with you. I never thought about it that way, about the evangelist point. But North Korea is a no-win situation all the way around. And what is Venezuela? Why are they a threat to us? I mean, just because they got Trump mad somehow? I don't understand it. Could you explain? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, it's the Venezuela situation is very much like the Cold War. The Venezuelan government, the Maduro government now, and before that the Hugo Chavez government, were advocates of socialism, not communism. There's plenty of free enterprise going on in Venezuela. In fact, that's the problem that these governments have, is that the free enterprise in Venezuela has produced some very, very wealthy people. And those very wealthy people don't like paying high taxes for social services. And, and there is one state industry, the oil industry, Citgo in the United States, the gas stations Citgo are owned by Venezuela. The refinery in the United States down in Texas, my understanding is the refinery that's most capable of doing Venezuelan oil is owned by Koch Industries. So if we can take down the social welfare aspects, the socialist aspects of the Venezuelan government, and replace it with an oligarchy like we're developing here in the United States, or like we've seen develop in other countries, like happened in Chile in the 60s, with those kind of things with Pinochet.
If we can pull that off, then we can extract more of that oil. Venezuela has one of the largest reserves of oil in the Western Hemisphere. It's not the best oil, but it's oil. And so there's lots of economic opportunities for giant American transnationals down in Venezuela. And they're very offended. And we, we being kind of the capitalist establishment, for lack of a better phrase. And I'm not an opponent of capitalism. I'm in favor of regulating capitalism. But the capitalist establishment sees Venezuela as a threat, because if they can make their country work without raw, naked, laissez-faire capitalism, then they view that as a threat. That's what's going on. We'll be right back.
Hi there, I'm Marie with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving donations, volunteering, or spreading the word about Free Speech TV, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to exist. And for that, I want to say thank you. Now you can give to the network powered by the people by donating an unwanted or used vehicle through our Vehicles of Change program. If you have an old car, RV, or even a motorcycle, Free Speech TV can use it to grow and thrive. You can make a bigger difference in supporting Free Speech TV by giving an old car. It's a great way to support the network without having to dig into your bank account. Just call 877-378-8669 and ask for more information about Vehicles of Change. Again, the number to call is 877-378-8669. If it has a VIN, we'll take it in. Thank you.
Here with you, and it is coming up on about 9 minutes before the hour. Todd in Minneapolis. Hey, Todd, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, how you doing, Tom? I was just calling because I was feeling when you were talking about the evangelical nature of communism, capitalism, Christianity, and so forth. For me, it's a very fascinating thing. I was thinking to myself, a lot of it has to do with, human nature and ego. People who are motivated by fear, who fear things they don't understand, and so therefore they have to try and enforce it on other people. I mean, myself personally, I have no problem with any of those things, provided nobody is trying to force them on me. But I think,
right.
We have certain people that are of, an egotistical mindset, and a lot of them, unfortunately, are very charismatic and can draw followers to them, and so they're able to stir up a lot of trouble in a sense, with the wars and all that kind of thing.
Yep.
I mean, it could be about.
I agree, and I think it's the one thing about the libertarian philosophy that used to be, I mean, it's not unique to libertarianism or anything like that. And I hate praising libertarians because I think by and large they're crazy. But the one idea is it's not the role of any one country to go around telling other countries how to be. And it's certainly not the role of the United States to be running the world. And, I think that's a pretty important concept and one that we should be, seriously paying attention to. And it's rejecting that evangelism. So that in the political sphere, I see that. In the religious sphere, it's one of the reasons I have so much respect for Judaism. It's really hard to become a Jew if you're not born a Jew. And, you've got to jump through all kinds of hoops. You've got to prove you really want to do it. It's not like they're out there saying, come to our mega church and give us your money. It's, it's instead, hey, we take this stuff seriously. And we're not trying to turn the world into us. And I would love to see the rest of the religions of the world start adopting those kind of philosophies, but I'm not holding my breath. But anyhow, excellent point, Todd. Thank you very much for the call. Well said. Pauline in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hey, Pauline, what's on your mind?
Yes, hello?
Hi, Pauline.
Hello?
Yeah, hi. You need to just start talking. There's a slight delay between us because I'm doing this show remotely from the other side of the country. My apologies.
What what I'm calling about is I have a question. Have the United Nations countries been providing us, the United States bodies, to fight the two wars in Iraq and Afghanistan for 16 years? I used to hear in the past where, you know, so many men died in Iraq and so many in Afghanistan, and they were from all these third world countries, and they were helping us out. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's the UN. I think it was NATO that pulled this stuff together, but I may well be wrong. We had a NATO coalition, as I recall, for the first Gulf War. The second Gulf War, I'm not sure if there were how many non-NATO countries were involved. But you're right. Yeah, there's a bunch of countries who we've successfully suckered into joining us in these stupid wars in the Middle East.
The ones making war, and they're the ones providing bodies to die, and then we're complaining about how much money they're sucking out of the United States. So I think Trump needs to do some reading and investigate history and, you know, politics and reality, because he's, well,
yeah.
You know,
Pauline, I completely agree with you. I think you've nailed it. However, that's not going to happen. I mean, it's just not his temperament. I think that, you know, we need to be seriously thinking about, you know, the 25th Amendment or impeachment, because Donald Trump is too unstable, in my opinion, to be president. McWayne in Chino Valley, Arizona. Hey, McWayne, we have about a minute and a half to the break. What's up?
Yeah, Tom, I was just wondering if, you know, does it seem to you that this latest fraudulent, trumped-up health care plan of the Republican cult is but another step at the behest of their privileged ruling class, their masters and owners, is but an attempt to create a Rohingya class of peoples in this country, you know, the impoverished who, by virtue of not being able to afford health care, will be, you know, subject to the ultimate cleansing, death.
It's the latest iteration of what we have been doing since the early 1600s, when we first started importing slaves into this country. Which is the Rohingya thing. You're absolutely right. The Rohingya are the people in Burma. Burma is a predominantly Buddhist country. The Rohingya are a couple of million largely tribal people who adhere to a relatively nonviolent form of Islam, although some of them have taken to fighting back, which has then produced this huge backlash. But to take it back to the United States, denying people the right to vote. The Rohingya can't vote in Burma. Denying people access to public services, health care, other public utilities. That's been happening in Burma forever. That's what we've been doing with people of color in this country for forever, basically. And yeah, I would say this is part of the ongoing third worldization of the United States. And it's not good for us. It's not good for our people. That's McWayne, that's a really great metaphor, analogy. I'm not sure which would be the right description, but thank you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by EcoWine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the organic wine company, EcoWine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
There's a terrible hurricane hitting Puerto Rico today. There are no doubt going to be many people dead, tragically. Massive destruction. It's running across the Caribbean. And, you know, I spent some time this morning watching and listening to the coverage of this storm on a couple of different networks. And I didn't hear anything about how the Bush administration wants to defund, actually already has defunded our new weather satellites. In fact, there's a whole set of new weather satellites that were being put together. Excuse me, the Trump administration. What did I say? The Trump administration wants to do this. And there were like a couple of satellites that were like, one of them was already built. And the Trump administration ordered the thing destroyed. I mean, shredded, or whatever you do with a satellite. Because, you know, it wasn't that they didn't want to spend the money on shooting the thing into outer space. That money was already appropriated. It was that they didn't want the weather information because it proves global warming. And as a result, we're going to have less accurate prediction of when and where hurricanes are going to hit us. I mean, this is how insane these people are. But the media is afraid to call them out for that, because the minute that they come right out and say, you know, these people are nuts, or they are totally lying to all of us because they're taking all this money from the fossil fuel industry. The minute any reporter says that will be the last minute that that reporter ever gets a Republican to come on their show. And that's the power, you know, that the Republican Party holds over the media. And not only that, of course, the minute any reporter for any major television networks, commercial television networks, says that, that's going to be the instance the BP and Koch Industries and all these other companies, these other Massey Energy, the fossil fuel companies start saying, hey, you know, I think we'll just pull our ads from the television network. And the network will lose millions of dollars because some commentator, in a slip of the tongue, told the truth. That's how screwed up our media landscape is in the United States, and why this right here, Free Speech TV, is so vitally important. I want to thank you for your response yesterday. You know, last week we were getting like $1,000 days, $2,000 days. I think our top day was almost a little short of $3,000. We really need to hit $10,000 every day. And in order to make our goal, you know, if we're going to do this over 3 weeks, and so we're like way behind. And yesterday we raised almost $11,000. That was great. A lot of people, you know, calling up with small gifts, you know, $20, $30, $50, $50. You know, what does it cost to go to a restaurant these days? And you just take one night and say, you know, tonight, instead of going to the restaurant, I'm going to keep Free Speech TV on the air. And, you know, for some of us, that'll be $30. And so for some of us, it'll be $80. Or, you know, for some of us, it'll be $10 at McDonald's or whatever. Whatever it is, when enough people do it, and there are a lot of people watching this program right now, it adds up. So today we need to hit that, you know, and exceed, frankly. You know, I mean, it would be great to have a $13,000 or $14,000 day, but at the very least, another $10,000 day. So if you have not yet called 877-378-8669, a major contribution to Free Speech TV, joined Free Speech TV, got, you know, become a member of Free Speech TV, become part of this family, please do so now. 877-378-8669, or you can do it online at freespeech.org. With an $80 contribution, you get a Free Speech TV water bottle and the Stamp Stampede stamp from Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's. That Ben was last Monday. He showed us, you know, on the program, and it's a really cool little self-inking stamper, you know, but it's all filled out with anti-big pharma stuff. That's with the $80 gift. With a $120 gift, You get that. You get the water bottle and the pharma stamp. Plus, you get a copy of Mike Papantonio's new novel, and this is literally just out. I mean, they're just shipping them from Amazon right now, and other booksellers. You get Mike Papantonio's book, Law and Vengeance. Great novel. It's a legal thriller. With a $240 gift or $20 a month for a year, you get that, Papantonio's book, plus Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, the book about, Germany. You've heard me describe these before. With a $360 gift or $30 a month, you get Mike Papantonio's book, Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, plus an autographed copy of my book, Unequal Protection, which is the book about corporate personhood. And if you ever want the details on corporate personhood, or you want to have discuss it with somebody, or just, you have somebody who you think might be interested, this makes a great gift, a birthday gift, a holiday gift, Christmas gift, whatever. With a $480 gift, you get all of those books, the, Pap's and Milton Mayer's and mine, plus Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean, which is an absolutely brilliant book about how the right-wing billionaires have taken over our country and what we can do about it. It's actually in some ways even an optimistic book. With a $1,000 gift, we can meet in Portland, Oregon, or Washington, D.C. and have a meal. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. If you find this network of value, please keep it alive. Please help keep this network going. We really need to make our goal.
Threshold.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Every time you think that the Republicans have hit a new low, they surprise. Well, I guess it's not a surprise, but they pull another one out, right? Lindsey Graham and Bill Cassidy running around doing the TV circuits. I haven't seen Dean Heller or Ron Johnson talking much about this, although Cassidy is always constantly throwing their names in as if that adds credibility to what they're doing. Dean Heller and Ron Johnson, of course, both up for re-election, I believe, this next year. I know Dean Heller is. I'm pretty sure Ron Johnson is. And the sales pitch that they are now giving to other Republicans, and we have this from multiple sources. There's a great piece over at Think Progress by Judd Legume, and but there's others, and there's in fact the headline. Let me get to the front page of the Washington Post here. This is just the headlines, right? You just go to WashingtonPost.com, and the top story: red states would benefit disproportionately in latest GOP healthcare plan. Cassidy-Graham bill would cut funding to 34 states, new report shows. Analysis: under GOP plan, healthcare spending would drop in all but 16 states. 15 of those 16 states voted for Trump. In other words, they're selling this. Now, let me tell you in advance, they're lying, and I'll lay that out in just a second. But they're selling this as to their Republican colleagues as, hey, let's screw the Democratic states. Let's just let's do everything we can to just ruin these states. Let's hurt them and help the red states. Now, keep in mind, the blue states are already subsidizing the red states hugely. I mean, you got red states that are taking $130 for every dollar that they send to D.C., whereas you've got blue states that are getting back 70 cents for every dollar they send. So, California, Massachusetts, New York, they're already subsidizing, with the exception of Texas, virtually all the red states. Texas is kind of breaking even, but they've got that booming oil economy down there near Houston, although it's been put on hold, I think, by the hurricane. We'll see where that goes. But so Lindsey Graham just came right out and said, this is from Judd Legume's piece in Think Progress. Speaking at the U.S. Capitol on Tuesday, Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican, South Carolina, discussed his bill to repeal Obamacare, which is quickly gaining momentum. In his remarks, Graham admitted that his strategy was largely based on redistributing large sums of money from large Democratic-led states like California, New York, Massachusetts, and Maryland to states that are more Republican. Now, anytime you mention raising taxes on rich people, the Republicans all start screaming, oh my God, wealth redistribution, you're going to redistribute money. That's not the role of government. People should keep their own money, make their blah, blah, blah. It's just, they go on and on and on, right? And now they want to redistribute our health care dollars from the states that adopted Obamacare, put things into place, they're doing things right. They want to take the money away from those states and throw it to the red states. Well, here's where, I remember I told you he's lying. Most Republican lies have a germ of truth at their core, and then they embellish them or they change them so that the apparent meaning becomes quite substantially different. This is from an analysis by the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities, and they found that under the Graham-Cassidy bill, this latest Obamacare repeal, which is really fundamentally no different than the ones before it, except that this one expires at the end of 10 years. At the end of 10 years, under this legislation, Medicaid, now think about this. If you're a low-income worker and you're getting Medicaid, if you're disabled and you're getting Medicaid, if your parents are in or going into a nursing home and it's being paid for by Medicaid, under this Republican bill, 10 years from now, Medicaid ends. Now, they can choose to reallocate money for it, but the funding goes to zero at the end of 10 years. This is insanely sneaky, what they're doing. And it's blowing my mind that the TV talking heads who are interviewing these Republicans are not asking them that question. Because this is not a secret. You can read this in the Washington Post or the New York Times. I mean, it's literally, it's right there. But most people don't read the Washington Post or the New York Times. Most people, most people don't even follow the news. More people follow sports in the United States than follow news. So, but it turns out that it's not just going to hurt the states that Lindsey Graham this morning was bragging to his Republican colleagues, hey, we're going to stick it to California. I mean, literally not those words, but words to that effect, that he was bragging about this morning to his Republican colleagues. It's not just going to hurt the four big Republicans or Democratic states, blue states, California, New York, Massachusetts, and Maryland. It's also going to hurt, get this, Alaska is going to lose $250 million. Louisiana is going to lose $3 billion. Bill Cassidy's from Louisiana. His own bill is going to hurt his own state to the tune of $3 billion. Montana is going to lose $500 million. North Dakota is going to lose $250 million. It goes on and on. I mean, it's and not only that, under this new bill, if I mentioned this yesterday, but it really deserves repeating. Under this new legislation, if you get sick, if you get cancer, if you get metastasized cancer, your health insurance company, under this new legislation, is authorized to not only charge you the basic $10,000 or $12,000 a year that you're paying for your policy right now, but to add a $140,000 a year surcharge to that bill. Sweet, huh? These Republicans really know what's best for America. Well, actually, they know what's best for the health insurance mobsters, the guys who run the health insurance companies, the banksters. They know what's best for Big Pharma. Because the banksters who run the health insurance companies are feeding money to them, and the greed heads who run the big pharma companies are feeding money to them, and the banks are in the midst of all this. I mean, the banks are loving this, right? If you get wiped out, if you get sick, and even if it's just $10,000 or $20,000 in copays, what do most people do with that? More than half of Americans have no savings whatsoever. What do most people do when they get sick? Even if it's just for the copay, they put it on their credit card. But once it's on the credit card, the banks are making 15, 20, 25, some cases 29%. Banks are loving this. And when people get hit with, $1 million expenses, The banks love that even more because now you got to refinance, you got to remortgage your home, or you've got to get somebody, a relative who has a house who's willing to put it. The banks are even making money on this. So there's this whole predatory industry in the United States built around for-profit health insurance and health, that just literally does not exist in any other country. And the Republicans are absolutely committed to keeping that predatory system in place because it doesn't prey on them. I don't think there's a single Republican in the United States Senate who's not a multimillionaire. And there's probably very few Republicans in the House of Representatives who are not at least millionaires. They don't care, right? Plus, they've got the government paying for their insurance. And they have pensions, actually. Reagan took pensions away from the rest of us, but not from the Senate and the House. And so they don't give a rat's ass. And even if they leave office, as long as they do exactly what Big Pharma wants and what the health insurance companies want, they're going to have $1 million job waiting for them when they leave. End up like Howard Dean, being a consultant to a Wall Street lobbying firm. Right. I shouldn't pick on Howard Dean. He's a Democrat. The Republicans are particularly big on this, but this is a bipartisan problem that we need to solve legislatively. Anyhow, we'll pick up your calls after.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
More in just a moment. It's 15 minutes past the hour. And welcome back. Chaz in Lakewood, Washington, watching us on Free Speech TV. Hey, Chaz, what's up?
Na zdrowie, comrade. Great minds think alike. I was thinking about bringing you a world map. I'm just a couple hours up I-5 from you.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we went over to Michael's craft shop and got that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Listen, when people debate about climate change, I don't know what the difficulty is. It really should be as simple as 2468. Like the city of Seattle, supposedly the rainy city of Seattle, didn't have rain in over 2 months. That can't be denied. Carbon has reached 400 parts per million for the first time in human history. That can't be denied. Like you said earlier, the atmosphere has 6% more atmosphere in the last 30 years. That cannot be denied, and that's what gave me the impetus to call. Finally, 8 Pacific Islands have just disappeared off of the map. That cannot be denied. And I have one more point I'd like to make.
Sure.
All right. Listen, if somebody says, well, yeah, that's a natural progression, it's not man-made. Well, natural changes occur over thousands of years, not like the last 15. It's like your social media retweeted that XKCD comic strip. Look, we stopped acid rain and ozone loss. We can handle this.
Yes, I agree. And the bizarre thing is, we stopped acid rain and the destruction of the ozone layer with a proposal that was put together by a Republican president, George Herbert Walker Bush, and was supported by Republicans in the House and Senate. So, but there was no industry. The only industry that was making money off sulfur dioxide in the air was the coal and the coal-fired power plant industry. And they did not have the power that the oil industry and that the natural gas industry has, and so they couldn't stop them. But yeah, excellent points all. Chaz, thanks for that. Marianne in Everett, Michigan. Hey, Marianne, what's on your mind? Thanks for watching Free Speech.
Thank you, Tom. I'll try to make this quick. First, my best wishes to the newlyweds and all their loved ones, and I hope the weather warms up a little bit for you this weekend.
Thanks.
I wanted to talk about the health care. I keep hearing people on a number of different call-in programs in the last couple of days calling in and saying we should just let this Graham-Cassidy bill go through. And it just let it implode, and then magically we're going to take back the Senate and or and the House, and then we can pass single payer. And, I'm thinking to myself, are these people blessed with tons of money and or perfect health? Or do they just think that passing a bill, do they really think that Mitch McConnell, even if a bill goes through the committees and gets out of committee, that Mitch McConnell would ever even let a vote come up on the floor?
What, you're talking single payer?
Yeah, they think that single payer is going to, just be the next progression. And it's like, you guys, I don't think they understand the repercussions to people right now that have illnesses or issues that are going to lose their health care. So, but I'm going to go. My phone is low. So, thanks for taking my call.
Okay. Thanks, Marianne. Bye-bye. I'm not sure I quite understood that. If we go to single payer, then if you have pre-existing conditions or you're sick, you're just fine. You just don't have a bill anymore. If, on the other hand, the Republicans have their way, you're in big trouble.
Hi, I'm Heather with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving of donations, volunteering, or even spreading the word, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to sustain for more than 20 years. Now, you can give to Free Speech TV through the Branch of Gratitude. This program is a sustainable way to give that reduces waste through paper mailing, postage, and staff hours. By choosing to participate in the Branch of Gratitude, you are joining hands with the socially conscious community and sending a message to the world that Free Speech TV is not only here to stay, it is here to thrive. Please call 877-378-8669 or go online to freespeech.org. Make a difference and join the Branch of Gratitude today.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And let's pick up some phone calls here. Glenn in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Hey, Glenn, it says here you're a Trump supporter. What's on your mind?
Yes. Hey, I just wanted to, I'm a veteran, and I saw the speech last night. Didn't get the chance to see it live yesterday. First time since I can remember, since Ronald Reagan, that I really felt the president said what most people think as far as how America should approach the world and stop meaning we shouldn't be pacifists. We shouldn't, I agree, we should not spread our form of democracy to other countries. I agree with that. But he set a precedent, say we're going to stand our ground this time. We're going to put an end to these people in Iran, what they're doing, Korea. He's put that guy in his place. And if you don't put the guy in his place, after he kills a couple million people, then they're going to say, why didn't Trump do something? And, we have to be...
Yeah, well, he's already killed a couple million people.
Okay, I'm listening.
Why? Yeah, well, first of all, Kim has already killed people. I mean, there have been multiple famines in North Korea. He's a brutal dictator. I mean, there's no disagreement about that. Nobody wants Kim Jong-un running the United States, and there's not a huge, line of people waiting to get into North Korea. But that said, yeah, much of Trump's speech yesterday was sort of standard issue speech, but that said, what's the advantage to us of pulling out of the Iran deal that was put together with Russia, China, England, France, and Germany? In addition to us, we've got 6 countries that put this thing together, and it actually has stopped Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Why would you want to pull out of that so that Iran can start developing nukes again? Number one, because again, back to my evangelism thing. To the best of my knowledge, Iran has not, in at least 700 years, conquered any other country's territory. They are not particularly evangelical either. In fact, they consider themselves a separate race. They consider themselves Persians. They speak a separate language, Farsi. So they're not all that evangelical either. But although they are supporting Hezbollah, and that is just making Israel crazy, and I understand that. But beyond that, because you could argue, well, if there was no Gaza and there was no
apartheid going on in Israel. There might not be Hezbollah, but who knows? I mean, that's a whole messy situation. But I don't see what the interest of the United States is in trying to start a war here, Glenn. Tell me.
Did the guy with Iran, did he not say if they develop a nuclear weapon and could launch it, they would wipe Israel off the map? Did they not say that?
No, they didn't. The quote that has been repeated 1,000 times on Fox News was the quote that has been repeated 1,000 times on Fox News from Rafsanjani, who has lost power in Iran and has been, largely marginalized and discredited, was not that he was going to wipe Israel from the map, but it was something considerably. I forget the exact phrase, but even if he said that, I mean, he doesn't have the means to do that. Israel has all kinds. Israel's got a couple hundred nuclear weapons, as best anybody can tell. Iran would be crazy to attack them. And again, we're sending Israel billions of dollars so that they can provide free health care all of their to all of their people, and great educational system, great infrastructure. It's a much more modern country in many ways than the United States. We're sending them the money for that. Why, again, is that our problem?
Because we are allies with Israel. We should support them as well as they support us. Right. We're not allies with Iran. They're not our friend in any way, shape, or form. And you should know that. You're an intelligent man. I think you would know that and realize that.
So, we're allies with a lot of countries that also have enemies. I mean, we're allies with India, and Pakistan is threatening to nuke them. We're allies with Pakistan, and India is threatening to nuke them. I mean, just because we're allies with another country, sure, if Iran invaded Israel, I would be saying, sure, let's go to Israel's defense. But they're not.
Well, by stopping them from getting a nuclear weapon, it's kind of doing that, isn't it? Once they launch it,
well, that's my point.
It's too late then.
Obama stopped them from getting a nuclear weapon. Obama and Merkel and Putin and all those guys, they stopped them from getting a nuclear weapon. And Trump now wants Iran to get a nuclear weapon. And I don't understand why. That seems stupid to me.
I haven't heard them say Trump wants them to have a nuclear weapon. I haven't heard. When did that come out?
The only thing that's stopping Iran from getting a nuclear weapon right now is this deal. If that deal blows up, Iran gets a nuclear weapon the next day. They immediately go for it. Right now they're limited. They can't do anything for 15 years. So why would we do something that stupid?
So you're saying we can trust a country that...
We're not trusting them. There's IAEA inspectors in there. This is not about trust.
Oh, is that the same thing?
No, it's not. It's because the United Nations has inspectors in Iran right now. They're inspecting it. We're inspecting it. The entire world community. The Trump administration... Glenn, listen to your own president. Donald Trump has twice now certified to Congress that Iran is completely in compliance with the agreement. There is no dispute that they're in compliance with the agreement. They are not developing a nuclear weapon. Even Trump is not saying that they are. But once he pulls out of this deal, there's nothing to stop them. It seems to me that the only reason he wants to do this is because Barack Obama did it, and he hates everything Obama. There's no logic to this. Glenn, thanks for the call. I wish I could have that kind of blind faith that
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
There's a terrible hurricane hitting Puerto Rico today. There are no doubt going to be many people dead, tragically. Massive destruction. It's running across the Caribbean. And, I spent some time this morning watching and listening to the coverage of this storm on a couple of different networks. And I didn't hear anything about how the Bush administration wants to defund, actually already has defunded our new weather satellites. In fact, there's a whole set of new weather satellites that would be put together. Excuse me, the Trump administration. What did I say? The Trump administration wants to do this. And there were like a couple of satellites that were like, one of them was already built. And the Trump administration ordered the thing destroyed. I mean, shredded, or whatever you do with a satellite. Because, you know, it wasn't that they didn't want to spend the money on shooting the thing into outer space. That money was already appropriated. It was that they didn't want the weather information because it proves global warming. And as a result, we're going to have less accurate prediction of when and where hurricanes are going to hit us. I mean, this is how insane these people are. But the media is afraid to call them out for that, because the minute that they come right out and say, you know, these people are nuts, or they are totally lying to all of us because they're taking all this money from the fossil fuel industry. The minute any reporter says that will be the last minute that that reporter ever gets a Republican to come on their show. And that's the power, you know, that the Republican Party holds over the media. And not only that, of course, the minute any reporter for any major television networks, commercial television networks, says that, that's going to be the instance the BP and Koch Industries and all these other companies, these other Massey Energy, the fossil fuel companies start saying, hey, you know, I think we'll just pull our ads from the television network. And the network will lose millions of dollars because some commentator in a slip of the tongue told the truth. That's how screwed up our media landscape is in the United States, and why this right here, Free Speech TV, is so vitally important. I want to thank you for your response yesterday. You know, last week we were getting like $1,000 days, $2,000 days. I think our top day was almost a little short of $3,000. We really need to hit $10,000 every day. And in order to make our goal, you know, if we're going to do this over 3 weeks, and so we're like way behind. And yesterday we raised almost $11,000. That was great. A lot of people, you know, calling up with small gifts, you know, $20, $30, $50, $50. You know, what does it cost to go to a restaurant these days? And you just take one night and say, you know, tonight, instead of going to the restaurant, I'm going to keep Free Speech TV on the air. And, you know, for some of us, that'll be $30. And so for some of us, it'll be $80. Or, you know, for some of us, it'll be $10 at McDonald's or whatever. Whatever it is, when enough people do it, and there are a lot of people watching this program right now, it adds up. So today we need to hit that, you know, and exceed, frankly. You know, I mean, it would be great to have a $13,000 or $14,000 day, but at the very least, another $10,000 day. So if you have not yet called 877-378-8669, made your contribution to Free Speech TV, joined Free Speech TV, got, you know, become a member of Free Speech TV, become part of this family, please do so now. 877-378-8669, or you can do it online at freespeech.org. With an $80 contribution, you get a Free Speech TV water bottle and the Stamp Stampede stamp from Ben Cohen of Ben & Jerry's. That Ben was, last Monday, he showed us, you know, on the program. And it's a really cool little self-inking stamper, you know, but it's all filled out with anti-pharma, anti-big pharma stuff. That's with the $80 gift. With a $120 gift, you get that. You get the water bottle and the pharma stamp. Plus, you get a copy of Mike Papantonio's new novel, and this is literally just out. I mean, you know, they're just shipping them from Amazon right now, and other booksellers. You get Mike Papantonio's book, Law and Vengeance. Great novel. It's a legal thriller. With a $240 gift, or $20 a month for a year, you get that, Papantonio's book, plus Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, the book about, you know, Germany. You've heard me describe these before. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month, you get Mike Papantonio's book, Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, plus an autographed copy of my book, Unequal Protection, which is the book about corporate personhood. And if you ever want the details on corporate personhood, or you want to have it, you know, discuss it with somebody, or just, you know, you have somebody who you think might be interested, this makes a great gift, a birthday gift, a holiday gift, Christmas gift, you know, whatever. With a $480 gift, you get all of those books, the, you know, Pap's and Milton Mayer's and mine, plus Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean, which is an absolutely brilliant book about how the you know, right-wing billionaires have taken over our country and what we can do about it. It's actually, in some ways, even an optimistic book. With a $1,000 gift, we can meet in Portland, Oregon, or Washington, D.C., and have a meal. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. If you find this network of value, please keep it alive. Please help keep this network going. We really need to make our goal.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And let's see here. Justice in Tucson, Arizona. Hey, Justice, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Thank you for taking my call. I enjoyed your soliloquy on the
evangelical nature of economic, political, and religious philosophy. Sure.
Without a doubt. But I thought you left out one important point. What happens with that movement is most times it becomes a demonization of the other side, which, you know, I'm watching Ken Burns' Vietnam, which is remarkable. And he's actually in that documentary showing us the future. If we're going to keep it up in Afghanistan and threaten North Korea and Iran, where we're headed. So I find that the total demonization of the other side is what really causes the major problem.
Yeah, and that's, you know, what you're saying is a variation of what I was saying before, and I didn't quite finish the sentence that I usually do, and that is that it's okay for you or me or anybody else to say, you know, the way that I live, the religion that I have, the lifestyle that I have, the form of government that I prefer is, in my opinion, the very best there is for me. And then it becomes, as I said earlier, evangelical when I say, and therefore you should have it too. But when it gets really toxic, like destructive, deadly, dangerous toxic, is when the person says, you know, my lifestyle, or in the case of, you know, take Nazism, for example, because it's the most extreme example, or just white racism in the United States, white supremacy. You know, my race, my group, my religion is the best, but yours is the worst. You are, you know, when people start labeling others as inferior or even worse, subhuman, less than fully human, which is what whites did to blacks in this country from the founding of our republic and many literally to this day, what Hitler did with Jews, gays, communists, union members. You know, that's the point at which it goes from being merely a sickness to a lethality, to a deadliness, to the sort of thing that destroys not just lives but nations. And so, yeah, I think you've nailed it. Justice, that was a great one. Thank you very much for the call. Norma in Montgomery, Alabama. Hey, Norma, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Dr. Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to let people know that on Tuesday we have this runoff between Strange and Roy Moore. Tomorrow night here in Montgomery at the RSA Activity Center across from the Power Building downtown, there's going to be a debate between Strange and Roy. Following that, there's going to be a rally for Roy Moore with Sarah Palin. She's going to be here. And then Friday night, Strange will be in Huntsville with Donald Trump, supporting him, and Mike Pence will be in Tuscaloosa. And so, like I said, this runoff is Tuesday. But there is hope. There is a Democratic candidate who is on the ballot for December the 12th. And anybody who wants to try and elect someone with some kind of intelligence. This Doug Jones was the district attorney who prosecuted the men who blew up the church in Birmingham and killed the 4 little girls. And he's running for the Senate seat. And so anybody who wants to get involved and do this, there's a group called Organize Alabama, and we're doing voter registration training also tomorrow evening. And they can get involved and do what they can to get people interested to go vote on December the 12th. You got to think about this is not too far behind Thanksgiving and big football games, and when people are thinking about Christmas. And we need to get people to get out there and go vote. We need people to round up anybody and everybody who's not registered and get them registered to vote. And this needs to be done, as soon as possible. It's too late if they're not registered to vote next week, but our focus needs to be on getting this Democratic candidate, Doug Jones, elected. And we need help. He doesn't have a lot of money.
Norma, a political question for you. Correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that the election between Strange and Moore right now, Strange is being supported by Trump. He's more mainstream Republican. Judge Moore is to the right of the Tea Party. He's being supported by the right-wing evangelical Taliban, essentially. But this is the Republican primary for to prepare a Republican candidate for the general election on December 12th. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. You are correct.
Okay. So then what I'm hearing from the national commentators, but you're there in Alabama, and I have so much respect for your political instincts, Norma. You've been informing me for a long, long time here. What I'm hearing from the national commentators is that the Democrat in the general election will have an actually probably easier time beating Roy Moore than he will Luther Strange, because while Moore has a fervent following in the hardcore right-wing Christian Taliban base in Alabama, he doesn't have the broad support across the state that would sustain him in a general election. But then I've heard from other people saying, that Luther Strange, because he's not crazy like Moore is, actually might have a better chance against the Democrats. So is Alabama an open or closed primary state? And if it's an open primary state, should Democrats take a chance in voting in the Republican primary to get the candidate that's easier for the Democrat to beat? And who would that be, in your opinion?
Well, it is a closed primary, but we have had some strange reassignment of voter party membership. And so I think that you're going to see, in my personal opinion, I think you're going to see Roy Moore beat Strange. But then when you get to the general election, there's no party affiliation demanded on voting for Republican or Democrat. And so I think that the plan is that Roy Moore wins Tuesday, and then we beat him in December if we get the vote out. But I have been calling Strange and Shelby's offices trying to get them to support single payer, and I'm being laughed at. And so if you think about if you get pregnant and this new health insurance policy goes into effect, that policy goes up 423% also. So you'll have to come up with $145,000 to carry your wife through that pregnancy. And then the baby, of course, if it has a problem, is immediately born with a pre-existing condition, and you can hit that $1 million cutoff on the first day the baby's in neonatal care. And so if we're going to survive, we have to get Doug Jones elected so we have a Democrat in the Senate. And the state of Alabama needs as much help as it can. I've been trying to round up people to run for office, and I'm not getting anywhere. They look at me like, I can't do that. And I'm saying, stop being apathetic. If you can manage your own household, you can run for office. And it's, trying to get people to understand that this time in our life is critical. And sometimes I feel like banging my head on the wall. Young people, you only need to be 25 to run for the state house, 30 to run for the state senate. And that's all it takes. And there's an office in the basement that will teach you how to write a bill. And I keep trying to get people interested in what district do you live in. They don't know. Who is your city councilman? They don't know. City council meeting last night, the room was empty. Yeah, and they're fighting over the budget, and they're going to try and separate city schools from county schools, which means that the schools outside the city will get all the money, and people are trying to stop that. But if you don't pay attention to what's going on, your life is at risk. I tried to explain to people that we have live active TB walking around, and you don't want someone with TB coughing on your salad. And please, people, just be thankful that it's not cholera or Ebola. If we don't have health care for the person who cleans out your car or cleans your child's school, you're all at risk. We need single payer. And we've got to get Doug Jones elected so he can help fight for this. We need another Democrat to break that 50 vote. And I'm like I said, I talk every day, and I think people are running when they see me coming now. But, it's just like, I need another Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, Tom.
Anything I can do to help, Norma. But I'm so impressed by your ongoing activism over the years, and you do such a great job with this. What's for those of us who are just now being introduced to Doug Jones, the Democrat who's going to run against whoever comes out of this Republican primary in Alabama, who could be the next senator from Alabama? Where did he come from? And I don't mean where was he born. I mean, politically, where did he come from? How did he get to be the guy who's running for the Democratic Senate, and what recommends him for that post? And how can people find out about it? We got about a minute left here, Norma.
He has a Facebook page, and you can look under Alabama for Bernie. That group is still active. Over 50 for Bernie is still active. All of these groups, but Organize Alabama. We have a Together We Will, Montgomery, Alabama group that's also helping. But like I said, he was the district attorney who prosecuted the Klan members who blew up the church in Birmingham and killed the 4 girls. And that is mostly what I know about him. I stay busy every day doing what I call walking and talking. But, it's, how much I can only talk.
So people can presumably find out about him by just Googling Doug Jones, Alabama, and they'll get the information. And I'm thinking in terms of getting to his website, offering some support, that kind of stuff, but that should not be hard to find. Norma, it's always great to hear from you. I'm sorry we're running out of time, but thanks so much.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be right back with more of your calls after this. We're going to check in with Talk Media News, too. Welcome back. My computer's software just seems to have frozen up. Boy, I've never had this happen before. I'm going to try to the screen's black. Okay, I'm going to bail out of this and reconnect and see how that works. Sometimes doing things remotely is a bit of a challenge and unavailable. Is my computer turned on over there? Did it somehow get turned off? It's behaving like, it's shut down. So anyhow, we're 10:46. Our Troy. Okay. This study by Avalere Health, this consulting firm, finds that many states will see sizable cuts to the federal money that will flow to their states. Relative to current law, some of those states are represented by GOP senators who are currently deciding whether to back the bill, including, as I mentioned earlier, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Rob Portman, and John McCain. And this is a real important time right now to be letting people know. If you call, for example, thank you. If you call, for example, Shelley Moore Capito, who is the Republican from West Virginia, she has repeatedly criticized in sharp moral terms. This is from an article in the Washington Post, Greg Sargent's piece in the Plumb Line. She has repeatedly criticized in sharp moral terms. Now, this is the one of the 2 senators, Joe Manchin is the other one, from West Virginia. She has she's the Republican, Joe is the Democrat. She has repeatedly criticized in sharp moral terms the damage that the earlier Obamacare repeal bills would do to people in her state. And of course, all the Republican legislation, all these Republican bills do that. They damage people. They take health care away from people. And West Virginia would get $1 billion less, and at the end of 10 years, Medicaid goes away. And there's a lot of people on Medicaid in West Virginia. Now, Fox News is not going to tell you this because they go along with the Republican lies like, yeah, sure, no problem. But, you know, the rest of the rest of the media knows this. Not a secret. I mean, I'm, reading this from the Washington Post. It's, buried in like the 10th paragraph of the story, but it's there that at the end of 10 years, they do this thing for the sequestration. At the end of 10 years, it ends. It has to be reauthorized. And you think Republicans are going to say, hey, let's start Medicaid all over again? No, they hate Medicaid. It's taking money from rich people and helping poor people. We can't have that, right? This is not the American way. The American way is for the rich people to have everything and the poor people to, complain. Or suffer in silence, really, I think is their sales pitch. So anyhow, we're going to try and get my computer fixed here. We'll be back with more right after this. Stick around. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Let's check in with Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world today. This report brought to you by Ellen Ratner's new book, Loving What You Do, and GoatsForTheOldGoat.com, her charity that helps people who are in desperate straits right now in South Sudan. On the line with us, Ellen Ratner. Hey, Ellen, what's going on in the world today?
Well, thank you. I just want to continue a little bit with your health care that you were just talking about. The Hill actually did a very good analysis. They usually are not the best, but they are on this issue. They basically also said that this bill, the Graham-Cassidy or Cassidy-Graham bill, depending on your perspective, defunds Planned Parenthood. Now, Planned Parenthood has all these clinics where they don't do abortions, but they give health care to women. And they also said it contains no money for the opioid crisis. So these are two things that were promised, that women would have access to health care, that there would be some money for the opioid crisis, and this new bill has none of that.
That's amazing. Is that widely known? I've been hearing all these people sales pitching this thing. I heard Bill Cassidy on Morning Joe this morning, somewhere between dissembling and lying through his teeth. And
right,
they
sort of because of course he said, well, no, this doesn't, who's the famous star that is now called his rule or whatever. He said, oh, it doesn't get in the way of that. Well, that's just not true. It does. And even Rand Paul said this was, I'm sorry.
No, I just a quick note to Troy. I just got my software back up and I put Ellen on the board. You were saying about Rand Paul, Ellen?
Well, even Rand Paul said that this was an anti-democratic bill, and he's not exactly a Democrat. He happens to be a physician, but he's not a Democrat, and he said he's voting against it. Now, of course, he would vote against any bill, but that's
right.
But for him to say a statement like that was really staggering.
Are there? I mean, Greg Sargent in the plumb line this morning in the Washington Post, he was pointing out that Susan Collins, Maine's going to get $1 billion less. Ohio's going to get $9 billion less. That's Rob Portman. He's up for re-election, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Lisa Murkowski, Alaska's going to get $1 billion less. Arizona gets $11 billion less. And at the end of 10 years, I don't know if you saw this in the article, at the end of 10 years, all funding for Medicaid stops. Medicaid just goes away if they don't reauthorize it.
They're going to reauthorize that. Yeah. What guarantee do we have of that?
Right, yeah. In other words, they're telling us they know exactly how the Republican legislature is going to think and behave 10 years from now. Right.
Right. I mean, and the Republicans are just doing their lines. I have a host that also told me, oh, well, there wasn't one nation that gave money for Hurricane Katrina or gave anything after Hurricane Katrina. Why are we giving them foreign aid? Excuse me, 70 countries gave to Hurricane Katrina. So, I mean, the Republicans are just repeating this line because that's what they're told to do.
Yeah,
It's really
it's
unbelievable.
just tragic. What else is going on in the world?
Okay, well, there's a lot going on. Theresa May, who is the Prime Minister of course, Great Britain, spoke today. She said that both Italy, France, and Great Britain were after the Internet firms to get rid of hate speech and jihadis and things like that. Within 2 hours.
By Internet firms, do you mean like Twitter, Facebook, and Google?
Exactly, yes. Yeah. And actually also on this issue, the president of France talked about the fact that there have been so many journalists who have been killed or imprisoned, and he wants a special rapporteur, as it's called, at the United Nations to be there to promote press freedom, which I think is great also. And the president of France said that today, so that was pretty unbelievable. So there's a lot going on at the United Nations today, and President Trump also met with Prime Minister Abbas. He met with the president of Jordan. They were both very complimentary to him, which I thought was kind of interesting. But what are you going to do when you're meeting with the president of the United States, right? So that was kind of interesting. Okay. Also, Michael Cohen is going to testify before the Open Senate Committee on October 25th. You know he was supposed to do a closed-door meeting, but then he released his statement to the press, and so they canceled the meeting, and now he's going to do open testimony on October 25th. Sarah Palin is hosting a debate watch party and after party for Judge Roy Moore of Alabama. And as you know, President Obama is against Roy Moore, but Steve Bannon and some other people are
You mean President Trump?
Roy Moore. Did I say? Okay, I meant President Trump. Sorry about that. Yeah. But
I have a real hard time saying that phrase at all, so don't.
Well, I screw up. What can I say? But this is really interesting. For those of you that don't remember, Judge Moore was the one that defied federal court order asking him to remove the Ten Commandments from the court. And I had another Republican host said to me, "What's wrong with the Ten Commandments?" I said, "Well, one of the things in the Ten Commandments is honor thy mother and father. What if somebody is suing their parents for sexual abuse and they see in the courtroom, honor thy father and mother? What are they supposed to do?" So,
well, and not only that, I mean, if you really actually read Deuteronomy, if your children are disrespectful, you're supposed to kill them. I mean, there's some pretty severe stuff in there.
This Dear Dr. Laura letter when she was doing radio, and they say, well, I'm allowed to have slaves from a neighboring country. Why can't I own Canadians? It's very funny. It's a tongue-in-cheek letter. But it's well worth seeing. All right.
I remember
was on a call this morning with the ACLU in Michigan. They have filed suit in federal court saying that the state of Michigan gives out foster care contracts to religious agencies such as Catholic Family Service, et cetera, who don't place children with gay and lesbian parents. And they say that that is wrong, that essentially it's allowing an establishment of religion. They are now putting this forth in a federal court because they say that a state has no right to establish religion, and they have 13,000 children in foster care, and they say they have many parents who are waiting to be foster parents or adopt children, and the state of Michigan won't allow them if they go through some of these religious organizations.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Quite
Ellen,
astounding.
it's always great talking with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am. I definitely am. Thanks a lot for the report. It's great to hear from you. That's brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Loving What You Do, Ellen Ratner's new book, available at bookstores everywhere. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
There's a terrible hurricane hitting Puerto Rico today. There are no doubt going to be many people dead, tragically. Massive destruction. It's running across the Caribbean. And, you know, I spent some time this morning watching and listening to the coverage of this storm on a couple of different networks. And I didn't hear anything about how the Bush administration wants to defund, actually already has defunded our new weather satellites. In fact, there's a whole set of new weather satellites that were being put together. Excuse me, the Trump administration. What did I say? The Trump administration wants to do this, and there were like a couple of satellites that were like, one of them was already built, and the Trump administration ordered the thing destroyed. I mean, shredded, or whatever you do with a satellite, because you know, it wasn't that they didn't want to spend the money on shooting the thing into outer space. That money was already appropriated. It was that they didn't want the weather information because it proves global warming. And as a result, we're going to have less accurate prediction of when and where hurricanes are going to hit us. I mean, this is how insane these people are. But the media is afraid to call them out for that, because the minute that they come right out and say, you know, these people are nuts, or they are totally lying to all of us because they're taking all this money from the fossil fuel industry. The minute any reporter says that will be the last minute that that reporter ever gets a Republican to come on their show. And that's the power, you know, that the Republican Party holds over the media. And not only that, of course, the minute any reporter for any major television networks, commercial television networks, says that, that's going to be the instance the BP and Koch Industries and all these other companies, these other Massey Energy, other fossil fuel companies start saying, hey, you know, I think we'll just pull our ads from the television network. And the network will lose millions of dollars because some commentator, in a slip of the tongue, told the truth. That's how screwed up our media landscape is in the United States, and why this right here, Free Speech TV, is so vitally important. I want to thank you for your response yesterday. You know, last week we were getting like $1,000 days, $2,000 days. I think our top day was almost a little short of $3,000. We really need to hit $10,000 every day. And in order to make our goal, you know, if we're going to do this over 3 weeks, and so we're like way behind. And yesterday we raised almost $11,000. That was great. A lot of people, you know, calling up with small gifts, you know, $20, $30, $50, you know. What does it cost to go to a restaurant these days? And you just take one night and say, you know, tonight, instead of going to the restaurant, I'm going to keep Free Speech TV on the air. And, you know, for some of us, that'll be $30. And so for some of us, it'll be $80. Or, you know, for some of us, it'll be $10 at McDonald's or whatever. Whatever it is, when enough people do it, and there are a lot of people watching this program right now, it adds up. So today we need to hit that, you know, and exceed, frankly. You know, I mean, it would be great to have a $13,000 or $14,000 day, but at the very least, another $10,000 day. So if you have not yet called 877-378-8669, a major contribution to Free Speech TV, joined Free Speech TV, got, you know, become a member of Free Speech TV, become part of this family, please do so now. 877-378-8669, or you can do it online at freespeech.org. With an $80 contribution, you get a Free Speech TV water bottle and the Stamp Stampede stamp from Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's that Ben was last Monday, he showed us, on the program. And it's a really cool little self-inking stamper, but it's all filled out with anti-big pharma stuff. That's with the $80 gift. With a $120 gift, you get that. You get the water bottle and the pharma stamp. Plus, you get a copy of Mike Papantonio's new novel, and this is literally just out. I mean, they're just shipping them from Amazon right now, and other booksellers. You get Mike Papantonio's book, Law and Vengeance. Great novel. It's a legal thriller. With a $240 gift, or $20 a month for a year, you get that, Papantonio's book, plus Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, the book about, Germany. You've heard me describe these before. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month, you get Mike Papantonio's book, Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, plus an autographed copy of my book, Unequal Protection, which is the book about corporate personhood. And if you ever want the details on corporate personhood, or you want to have discuss it with somebody, or just, you have somebody who you think might be interested, this makes a great gift, a birthday gift, a holiday gift, Christmas gift, whatever. With a $480 gift, you get all of those books, the, Pap's and Milton Mayer's and mine, plus Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean, which is an absolutely brilliant book about how the right-wing billionaires have taken over our country and what we can do about it. It's actually in some ways even an optimistic book. With a $1,000 gift, we can meet in Portland, Oregon, or Washington, D.C. and have a meal. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. If you find this network of value, please keep it alive. Please help keep this network going. We really need to make our goal.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I'm live from Portland. In our D.C. studio is Charles Sauer, libertarian economist and president of the Market Institute, marketinstitute.org. And you can tweet him at Charles Sauer. It's S-A-U-E-R is how he spells his last name. Charles, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Charles?
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us. So you're welcome. So the Republicans are all kind of twisted up in knots right now, trying to figure out what they're actually up to with regard to how to repeal Obamacare, et cetera. And it seems to me like this is the absolute biggest hole in the whole libertarian philosophy. Is the essence of it being essentially, I got mine, screw you, and there's how and I know we've talked about this before, but I don't think I've ever achieved any clarity at all in terms of understanding your worldview in how, in a country as diverse as the United States, where you've got people, from dirt poor, you've got people who are not capable of taking care of themselves, whether they're handicapped or mentally handicapped, young children. You've got older, elderly people. I mean, we've got this huge spectrum of people. We've got, cities, rural, rich, poor, all this kind of stuff. And yet, as a matter of national security, if we don't have a national healthcare system, we are vulnerable to a bioweapon. As a matter of national productivity, if people don't have access to healthcare and they still have to work and they're sick and they're sneezing all over your salad, we're losing, and we do every year, lose literally billions of dollars of productivity to people, being unnecessarily sick because they were sickened by workers around them who couldn't afford to take a day off or whatever. Which I guess is kind of wandering into a slightly different topic, but how, and I realize, given the caveat, there's never been a successful libertarian country or state or even city anywhere, so we don't have an example for this. But how, in your Ayn Rand mind there, Charles, how would you provide health insurance or health care? Forget about insurance. How would you provide health care to every American?
Well, fortunately, What I'm looking for is affordable, equitable healthcare, something, a way to increase the quality, access, and lower the price to healthcare. And this is something where I actually find it usually appalling where the left is on healthcare, and that's this top-down fascist approach where they believe that the bureaucrat on top knows how everybody needs healthcare, where they're going to do it, and that's the way to give healthcare to the healthy and not actually address the needs of the sick. So what I'm for is providing care to the sick. So where we actually have functioning markets in the U.S. We have a surgery center in Oklahoma. They list prices that is a cash price. Their cash price is about 20% of what it costs at the nonprofit hospital down the street, and that's what people are actually paying to the hospital and what they're actually paying to the surgery center in Oklahoma. But it's not just the prices there, because we can actually see competition working in this market, because we also have surgery centers in Florida, in Virginia, in California, and moving also into Colorado and a few other states. And the difference in the prices in these cash places are within an airplane ticket of each other. And that's because there actually is competition in healthcare. And this is the libertarian approach, is to free it up. We have a family doctor in Texas who charges cash prices. She gives discounts to patients that wear in spurs. And you can't do that if you're working on a government for a government program like Medicare or Medicaid. But she treats day laborers and billionaires. She's amazing. Juliet Madrigal Dersh down in outside of Austin, Texas. But the libertarian approach is to let the free market work, to give people money or let them keep their own money and shop for healthcare. And that's why the Graham Cassidy bill is great, because it takes the money outside of D.C. It stops this federal bureaucrat and it gives it back to the states. It's not the perfect libertarian approach, but it starts increasing the ability for people to have choices by at least starting by letting the states have choices on how to provide health care.
Okay, I'm not going to get all reactive about your calling single-payer fascistic when the definition of fascism is the merger of, is basically the acquisition of government power by corporations. So it's the opposite of that. But in any case, you never answered my question, Charles. How are you going to provide health care to a homeless person on the street in San Antonio? How are you going to provide health care to a mother of two in Akron, Ohio, who's working a minimum wage job and literally has to maybe one day a week only eat half the food that she would normally eat because she can't afford it? How are you going to do that? I mean, you're not going to do that by saying, "Hey, you can shop prices at surgery centers." This answer by anecdote is nonsense. Let's talk systemically. How do you provide health care to every American?
I have the actual non-anecdotal story. You made up a story about a homeless person on the street. The fact is I gave you a real price. The Oklahoma Surgery Center of Oklahoma charges 20% of what the nonprofit hospital charges. I don't use the anecdotes here. I have real numbers, and so that's the deal. All we have on your side are the anecdotes.
Charles, there are homeless people all over the United States. So you're saying that the homeless person needs to go to that surgery center and should be delighted that the surgery to cut away the MRSA on their leg or whatever is only going to cost them $22,000 instead of $29,000. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, what I'm saying is that the government programs that you're advocating for have already proven to fail. And while those government programs are proving themselves to fail, what is coming up and propping up and helping those homeless people that you're talking about are free markets and charities. That is what is helping those people. But the government programs, look, we have, again, non-anecdotal. We have research that came out of the only randomized study in Medicaid that showed that it didn't increase or improve the health of the people that got it. That is non-anecdotal. Coming up with stories and trying to bring a figure into this that is going to imply sympathy, that's anecdotal.
So setting aside all the words here, What I heard you say is that the way that you're going to provide health care to people in the United States who right now can't afford to buy health insurance, from homeless people to low-income people, is that they should depend on charity.
I'm saying that the government programs that are on top are already making it unaffordable. The only way to make it unaffordable are to use like a concierge medicine.
I'm not asking you for a critique. I'm asking you for a solution.
Yeah, the solution is happening in the U.S. as we speak because the government programs have created this problem. We have Atlas MD in Kansas. They're charging $50 a month for unlimited visits to your doctor. We have different versions of that in Florida where you have unlimited access to your doctors for something that's a reasonable price.
What happens when your doctor finds a lump? What happens when your doctor says, hey, look at this. We got a stage 1 cancer here. It's only going to cost you $70,000 to have the surgery and the radiation.
Well, the $70,000 is what it costs when you have Medicare not paying doctors, when you have hospitals that are not treating the patient
it's only going to cost you $40,000 because we're super competitive.
Again, where I started with was 20%. All right. So if you work back from your 70,000, what are we talking about? 15,000. If you find a lump, it should be worth 15,000. And there's charities for the people that can't afford that 15,000. But what is bankrupting the system is the fact that right now
charities
hospitals are charging 70,000.
Charities in the United States last year provided about $5 billion worth of all types of services. That's how much we spent on healthcare in the United States in 3 days. I mean, well, anyway, Charles Sauer, marketinstitute.org is the website. You can tweet him at Charles Sauer, S-A-U-E-R. Charles, thanks. Great talking with you.
Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Give me just a minute to get my computer back up. Here we go. All righty, let's see here. Ellen in Ambrose, North Dakota. Hey, Ellen, what's on your mind? Thanks for watching Free Speech.
Yes, I would. My co-worker's dad was a Democrat, and he's been watching Fox News quite regularly, and she says he's getting brainwashed really seriously. And she wonders if there's any way to stop it or do anything about it. And so I told her I would talk to you and ask you if you know any way to deal with it. Or
Yes, I do. Jen, what's her last name? Slater? Jen? Anyway, she made this brilliant movie, and I'm in the movie, but just a very little bit of it. But it's called The Brainwashing of My Dad. And you can watch it on Netflix. Jen Senko, that's right, Jen Senko. Or Senko, S-E-N or K-O or S-E. Yeah, I think it's S-E-N-K-O. Yeah, that's right. But the important point is the movie's called The Brainwashing of My Dad. And it's the story of her father, who is this lovely, elderly Democratic gentleman who who retired and started watching Fox News all the time. And not only did he become right-wing Republican, but he became irascible, irrational, unreasonable, racist. I mean, it was just amazing. It was a night and day transformation. She documents this in excruciating detail. And then she talks about basically kind of the family intervention, which was getting him away from Fox News, long enough for him to be deprogrammed. Because what you're dealing with here, Ellen, is a cult. This is a cult, just like Scientology. Just like, pick your cult, Jim Jones. This is, in fact, it's a death cult. It's promoting policies that lead to people's death. And so the step one is to extract them from the cult, which means get them away from Fox News for a couple of weeks or expose them to other things, so that they can hopefully make up their own minds. Most of these people have been one of the more important parts of the Fox News brainwashing, or one of the more effective parts of the Fox News brainwashing, is the continual assertion that all other news is filled with lies and shouldn't be believed. And I strongly recommend you check out that movie. Are you familiar with it, Ellen?
Yes, I've heard of it. Yes, and I can recommend it to her. I didn't know it was called The Brainwashing of My Dad, which is almost exactly what's happening to her. And I also wanted to ask you. I was watching. I'm only watching Free Speech now, and I noticed a little green box on your show that had the letters RT. What does that mean?
That's our evening TV show. I do a TV show, and I will be doing it for one more week, and then we're stopping. I've been doing it for 6 years, I believe, for RT. RT is a television network. It's funded out of Russia. It's it's like the Russian version of Al Jazeera or the BBC or Agence France Presse or whatever. And but I'm leaving that program next week. But that you'll only see that on the half-hour show at night. So that's what that is. And this show is not that. So Ellen, thanks a lot for the call. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Heather with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving of donations, volunteering, or even spreading the word, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to sustain for more than 20 years. Now, you can give to Free Speech TV through the Branch of Gratitude. This program is a sustainable way to give that reduces waste through paper mailing, postage, and staff hours. By choosing to participate in the Branch of Gratitude, you are joining hands with the socially conscious community and sending a message to the world that Free Speech TV is not only here to stay, it is here to thrive. Please call 877-378-8669 or go online to freespeech.org. Make a difference and join the Branch of Gratitude today.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And a couple of other things here I wanted to run through, and then we'll get to picking up your phone calls here. I mentioned at the very beginning of the program, back 2.5 hours ago, that that we were talking about, about Donald Trump's speech to the United Nations and my specific complaints about it. I need not repeat those, I think. But apparently, I wasn't the only one who was concerned, and this should. I don't know. I feel embarrassed for my country. I don't know how to say it other than that. And I'd be surprised if most Americans don't. At least if they bother to inform themselves. This is from McClatchy, the McClatchy News Service. It's a nonpartisan, well-respected news service, and good information. And the headline kind of says the whole thing. The article is by Franco Ordonez. And the headline, world leaders skip out on Trump to avoid embarrassment. Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, the presidents of Russia and China, respectively, along with Germany's Angela Merkel, Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, and Mexico's Enrique Peña Nieto, all chose not to go to Donald Trump's speech. And turns out, they suggest that one U.S. official in contact with the diplomatic community said even meetings that should be a good meeting can veer off in bizarre directions. In other words, they're scared to death that Donald Trump is just going to go nuts on them. And, frankly, I think that that's probably a fairly legitimate concern. So anyway, there is that. There's a couple of other things that are going on that I think are pretty consequential. And one of them is this the Republican Party now has come up with their very own news service, believe it or not. And, this is like as strange as it gets that they've got their a new Republican healthcare, whatever you call it. And it's pretty amazing, really, when you think about it, that the Republican Party would say, yeah, sure, let's create our own network. And I mean, this goes back to, Roger Ailes was in the Nixon White House, and he put together this proposal for what they called GOP TV, right? Republican Party television. And Nixon wouldn't fund the thing. They tried to get Nixon to come up with the money for it, but Nixon wouldn't fund it. But now the Republican Governors Association is funding, and as of up until just like yesterday, I think it was, they didn't even identify it as anything other than a news source. Like they're trying to get Google and Apple and whatnot to carry their stories, but their stories are all about how wonderful Republicans are. And they talk about how there was a hurricane in Florida or in Texas rather, and look at what Greg Abbott did, isn't it wonderful? But when there's a hurricane in Louisiana, where you've got a Democratic governor, it's like, we're not even going to literally discuss that. It is pure Republican propaganda, but it is not identified as that. And that's a pretty astonishing thing, that they're pulling this thing off, and that they were not revealing, where the source of it was and all this kind of thing. It is exactly now what Roger Ailes had originally proposed back in the day was that the program be his GOP TV program, that every day they record a little 5-minute newscast, a pseudo newscast at the White House. And then they get them on airplanes. This was even before FedEx. This was in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. And they put them on airplanes and fly them to radio stations all over or television stations all over the country so that they can be used. And that was fairly expensive. I mean, they didn't have the technology we have today. And so Nixon couldn't sign off on it. So Ailes had this idea, and he eventually took it to Rupert Murdoch, apparently. And Fox News came out of that. And we know now that Fox News even makes decisions based on ideology over profit, which is pretty bizarre for a commercial network. But that's what's going on. But this new network from the Republican Governors Association, this is as weird as it gets. And it's going to be real interesting to see, Facebook, Google, Twitter, this thing with, and now they're going after, of course, RT and Sputnik. But, are they also going to go after the Republican Governors Association? Hey, if you're doing news, present it as news. If you're not, at least disclose where it's coming from, what the funding is or whatever. This is just so very strange. And, not surprisingly, there's no Democratic equivalent of it. And that's actually a pretty good question is, I'm sure if the Democrats did it, they would be at least a little more transparent. They wouldn't try to pretend that, hey, this is the news. Instead, they'd say this is the Democrats' news, right? And the Republicans may be shamed into that. But would that be a good idea for the Democrats? It might be.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with your calls right after the break.
There's a terrible hurricane hitting Puerto Rico today. There are no doubt going to be many people dead, tragically. Massive destruction. It's running across the Caribbean. And, I spent some time this morning watching and listening to the coverage of this storm on a couple of different networks. And I didn't hear anything about how the Bush administration wants to defund, actually already has defunded our new weather satellites. In fact, there's a whole set of new weather satellites that were being put together. Excuse me, the Trump administration. What did I say? The Trump administration wants to do this. And there were like a couple of satellites that were like, one of them was already built. And the Trump administration ordered the thing destroyed. I mean, shredded, or whatever you do with a satellite. Because, you know, it wasn't that they didn't want to spend the money on shooting the thing into outer space. That money was already appropriated. It was that they didn't want the weather information because it proves global warming. And as a result, we're going to have less accurate prediction of when and where hurricanes are going to hit us. I mean, this is how insane these people are. But the media is afraid to call them out for that, because the minute that they come right out and say, you know, these people are nuts, or they are totally lying to all of us because they're taking all this money from the fossil fuel industry. The minute any reporter says that will be the last minute that that reporter ever gets a Republican to come on their show. And that's the power, you know, that the Republican Party holds over the media. And not only that, of course, the minute any reporter for any major television networks, commercial television networks, says that, that's going to be the instance the BP and Koch Industries and all these other companies, these other Massey Energy, the fossil fuel companies start saying, hey, you know, I think we'll just pull our ads from the television network. And the network will lose millions of dollars because some commentator in a slip of the tongue told the truth. That's how screwed up our media landscape is in the United States, and why this right here, Free Speech TV, is so vitally important. I want to thank you for your response yesterday. You know, last week we were getting like $1,000 days, $2,000 days. I think our top day was almost a little short of $3,000. We really need to hit $10,000 every day. And in order to make our goal, you know, if we're going to do this over 3 weeks, and so we're like way behind. And yesterday we raised almost $11,000. That was great. A lot of people, you know, calling up with small gifts, you know, $20, $30, $50, $50. You know, what does it cost to go to a restaurant these days? And you just take one night and say, you know, tonight, instead of going to the restaurant, I'm going to keep Free Speech TV on the air. And, you know, for some of us, that'll be $30. And so for some of us, it'll be $80. Or, you know, for some of us, it'll be $10 at McDonald's or whatever. Whatever it is, when enough people do it, and there are a lot of people watching this program right now, it adds up. So today we need to hit that, you know, and exceed, frankly. You know, I mean, it would be great to have a $13,000 or $14,000 day, but at the very least, another $10,000 day. So if you have not yet called 877-378-8669 and made your contribution to Free Speech TV, joined Free Speech TV, got, you know, become a member of Free Speech TV, become part of this family, please do so now. 877-378-8669, or you can do it online at freespeech.org. With an $80 contribution, you get a Free Speech TV water bottle and the Stamp Stampede stamp from Ben Cohen of Ben & Jerry's. That Ben was, last Monday, he showed us, you know, on the program. And it's a really cool little self-inking stamper, you know, but it's all filled out with anti-big pharma stuff. That's with the $80 gift. With a $120 gift, you get that. You get the water bottle and the pharma stamp. Plus, you get a copy of Mike Papantonio's new novel, and this is literally just out. I mean, you know, they're just shipping them from Amazon right now, and other booksellers. You get Mike Papantonio's book, Law and Vengeance. Great novel. It's a legal thriller. With a $240 gift, or $20 a month for a year, you get that, Papantonio's book, plus Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, the book about, you know, Germany. You've heard me describe these before. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month, you get Mike Papantonio's book, Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free, plus an autographed copy of my book, Unequal Protection, which is the book about corporate personhood. And if you ever want the details on corporate personhood, or you want to have it, you know, discuss it with somebody, or just, you know, you have somebody who you think might be interested, this makes a great gift, a birthday gift, a holiday gift, Christmas gift, you know, whatever. With a $480 gift, you get all of those books, the, you know, Pap's and Milton Mayer's and mine, plus Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean, which is an absolutely brilliant book about how the you know, right-wing billionaires have taken over our country and what we can do about it. It's actually in some ways even an optimistic book. With a $1,000 gift, we can meet in Portland, Oregon, or Washington, D.C., and have a meal. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. If you find this network of value, please keep it alive. Please help keep this network going. We really need to make our goal.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I've told the story, a few times on this program over the years of back, literally right after Barack Obama, President Obama got elected in November of 2008. That December, he was not yet president, but he had been elected president. He was president-elect. I was visiting my family in Michigan, and my brother and I went to the shooting range. And the guy was nearly out of ammunition and would only sell us a little bit of ammo per person and I asked him why, and he said, because he used the N-word. He said, that N-word in the White House is going to take away our guns and our ammunition, and people are stocking up. And I said, that's totally nonsense. And he said, oh no, it's not. And pulled out his cell phone and showed me an email, or maybe actually, no, he had a printout under the counter of an email from purporting to be the NRA, God only knows what it was, about here's the specific plan, and they're going to propose this legislation, blah, 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 all this stuff. Well, ever since Trump became president, gun sales have collapsed in the United States, right? Freaky white people are no longer, afraid that the government's going to steal their guns. And in fact, they're sitting on lots of guns that they don't know what to do with. So the gun manufacturers are like in big trouble. So what does Donald Trump do? I mean, the NRA helped get him elected, right? So what Donald Trump is doing is, well, this is from Victoria Jones's newsletter today. The Trump administration is preparing to make it easier for American gun manufacturers to sell small arms, including assault rifles and ammunition. This is the stuff like Adam Lanza used to shoot up Newtown, the children, right? To sell this to foreign buyers, according to senior U.S. officials. Aides to President Trump are completing a plan to shift oversight of international non-military firearms sales from the State Department to the Commerce Department. Now, it used to be that when we sold weapons, or the way it is right now, when you sell weapons to foreign countries, governments, or even large quantities of weapons to foreign individuals, they have to go through the State Department. The State Department says, are these going to be used against us? I mean, did Al-Qaeda just call up and order 100,000, M15s? Maybe we should look at that sale, right? But because the State Department is concerned about the international impact of things like selling weapons. The Commerce Department has a whole different mandate. The Commerce Department's job is to make money for American corporations, or help American corporations make money, like weapons manufacturers. So from now on, instead of asking, is selling weapons to this country, weapons that might end up being used against us or against one of our allies, or that might be feeding a civil war or destabilizing a region, or might just produce an explosion of crime, is selling weapons to this country, used to be the State Department would say, is this a good idea or not for world peace and for the United States? Now the question is going to be, is selling weapons to this country going to maximize the profits for Remington or Smith & Wesson, which is now owned by some other foreign company now? It doesn't get more bizarre than this. I'm telling you, it is just totally strange. Anyhow, Bill in St. Helens, Oregon. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I'm just flashing on the, wouldn't apportioning federal health care dollars to states based along party affiliation be a clear violation of the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause?
It would be. This is not so much a specific apportionment like that, but this is the result of the fact that most of the Democratic states, I think all of the Democratically controlled states, took the Obamacare Medicaid expansion. And so they've been taking expanded federal dollars now for several years and, using them to fund health care for their people. Whereas most of the Republican states, there's three or four exceptions, but most of the Republican states
just never took that money. So if you take that money away, it hurts the Democratic states, but the Republican states and don't get hurt. And if you replace that money with a smaller amount of money that the Republican states are willing to take, now your Democratic states are getting less and your Republican states are getting more. But it's not, quote, calling it Democratic and Republican. It's because they chose to participate in Obamacare. Makes sense, Bill?
Yeah, it does. Can I ask a quick rhetorical off-the-subject question? I just keep thinking of the irony here, totally off. I keep wondering if anyone realizes the irony of investigating Russian tampering in our elections by putting misinformation out to the public. Seems like we should be investigating a lot of other people. Okay, that's it.
I don't disagree. I think that there should be a thorough investigation of what role, if any, the Russian government played or individual Russian corporate actors. But it's certainly not limited to them. You're absolutely right. And there's an enormous amount of disinformation in the United States being cranked out by everything from corporations to the Klan. I mean, it just goes on and on. So, hopefully this will be a healthy conversation, and it'll lead to something good. Bill, thanks for the call. Pat in Carbondale, Colorado. Hey, Pat, what's on your mind today?
Good morning. I've been listening to your program since you were broadcasting from Portland. I think it's been a few years.
Mm-hmm. It's been 7 years.
Wow. So this is not world shaking, but, we talked a little bit before about the Democratic Party and a need to have some sort of a unity, a more common direction, something more easily described or, I'm, for example, like Bernie, I'm left of the Democratic Party because I just don't feel they address enough important issues and so on. But so I had a kind of a slogan or a motto, if you will, and it's very simple. It's just a few words. Let's work together. And, it's kind of grown on me since I came up with it here a few weeks ago. And there's a lot of bringing together, the word let's, the work idea that we're, together working on a project, that we're together. And, in some ways, this is kind of an antithesis of the Trump ethos that you were talking about earlier. But just some kind of a little piece of glue that would help people, sort of focus on some of the more important issues. So I'm just throwing that out.
I like it. It's also the refrain in an old Boogie with Canned Heat song, as I recall. Let's work together. There you go. Yeah. Let me roll that around in my head for a little bit, Pat. Thank you. That's a great suggestion. I appreciate the call. Kurt in Los Angeles. Hey, Kurt, what's on your mind?
Hey, hello, Tom. How are you? And congratulations to your daughter and family for her wedding coming up.
Thank you.
I'd hoped to talk to you about this before Mr. Sauer came on the air, but it's still is relevant, and hopefully you can provide me some insight. It's about libertarianism and its encroachment into our educational system. About 7 or 8 years ago, one of your former colleagues, Rachel Maddow, interviewed a gentleman by the name of Rand Paul. And he was running, that was back when he was running for Senate. And she had uncovered or explored his ideas about the Civil Rights Act of 1964, in which he was promoting an idea that private business owners ought to have the right to discriminate because they're private, and so if they want to discriminate, this should be their right. Now, at that time, that was his opinion. And as a result of that interview, Rachel Maddow made her bones as a broadcaster. Rand Paul still got elected, became senator, but he it didn't come without a lot of criticism. But now, 8 years later, I'm in a college right now where a lawyer posing as a professor stated as fact that private businesses do have the right to discriminate, but they don't anymore since 1964 or 62 when the Woolworth counter incident happened with the lunch counter incident. They don't out of fear of peer pressure and riots. and that's why we don't see discrimination. Okay, that's what he's teaching.
That is such BS.
For the past BS. But that's what he's teaching. This is a lawyer teaching that as fact, not opinion, but fact. Okay? Now, he's not...
I wonder if that teacher is one of these guys that is being funded in part by one of the Koch front groups.
Right. And I'd hoped to talk to you about this before Mr. Sauer came on, but you had your own topic all ready to go. But the next time you have him on, I just want to try to understand, what is the end game? Why has the Koch brothers sponsored a campaign to rewrite textbooks down in Texas and take out the word slavery and replace it with workers? Workers.
Well, I don't know that they specifically did that, but I know that that's been done. I don't know that you can necessarily pin that on David and Charles, but I think the end game is very, very simple, Kurt. It's feudal. It's neo-feudalism. You know, there's arguably in a capitalist society, the most stable form of capitalism is feudalism, and in fact, modern capitalism emerged out of feudalism. What happened was many of the, in feudalism, you've got the lords who own all the land and they own all the people on the land, basically, and they're called serfs. And what used to happen back in the 1300s was that the serfs would flee and start their own communities, which they referred to as communes, and out of those they developed democratic principles. These were the earliest democracies. This is also the origin of the whole Robin Hood myth. Robin Hood was one of those serfs who fled and said, "Hey, I'm not going to be doing the Lord's work, the Lord of the Manor House work anymore."
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And Jimmy Carter acknowledged it on this program a while ago when he said, it's not a democracy anymore, it's an oligarchy. And welcome back, David in Los Angeles. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Well, Tom, I have to put out up front that I did make my contribution, a donation to the station, and I suggested everybody that listens to you and Free Speech TV do likewise. But the reason I'm calling in today, Tom, is to not only mention that, but also I really resent the fact that you guys have to go around with hat in hand, asking the public to finance this honorable enterprise, whereas there's just a wash of resources and money for propaganda, And incidentally, I did call MSNBC one day last week when they was really on this thing with RT and Sputnik, right? And I say now, if people are really interested in combating propaganda, RT, Sputnik, and assorted variety of other stations or news outlets do not compare to Fox News. They are weaponizing information, just like you were having this conversation with the lady about her father listening to Fox News for a certain period of time and got to realizing that his behavior was changing. Because Fox propaganda is weaponized propaganda, weaponized information to which you can hear when you listen to right-wing people who have been indoctrinated by their propaganda. So this is a discussion that we need to have nowadays, Tom, is that if we're going to allow something as obviously propaganda as Fox News, and a sort of variety of right-wing radio stations to have access to the masses like this, then, then shut up about RT, Sputnik, or sort of.
Well, I think there's I think there's a difference. There's just at a gut level for Americans, there's a difference between a news source that's funded by Americans and a news source that's funded by a foreign country. whether it's Al Jazeera, hey, it's Muslims funding it, or whether it's RT, hey, it's Russians. But I absolutely get your point. And just because Americans are funding something doesn't mean that it's not necessarily full of lies or that it's not even necessarily toxic to the United States. So if, I'm getting it, David, that what you're calling for is a more honest discussion about what is and isn't propaganda.
Yes, sir. By all means. And so I think you cited a study with Stanford and another university for those that study people who listen to
Northwestern, yeah.
Right? And also the incident you cited with the lady whose father was listening to Fox News. I mean, you know, I listen to him, Tom, because, it's not just I'm a news junkie. First Amendment, freedom of the press, and information is my, truth is my thing, right? And so when I see it being abused in the manner to which we are experiencing today, and you can see this in the way our fellow so-called Americans are being propagandized in the results therein.
Yeah. David, I'm sorry we're out of time, but I completely agree. You said it so well. Thanks a lot for the call. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, live from Portland. Matt in Houston, Texas. Hey, Matt, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. First of all, I was listening to your show last night, and I heard some very interesting things. One of the most interesting things I had heard about Eisenhower's last speech, beware of the military industrial complex, but that whole speech was very, very powerful, and I think that that should be made available more in the public now than ever. The other thing,
Matt, I completely agree. Matt, just if I may interrupt you just for a second, Troy, if you can cue up, this is what he's talking about is Eisenhower's Cross of Iron speech. What we spend on a bomber and all that kind of stuff. And that was not his farewell address. That was a speech that he gave in 1956 or 57 to the American Society of Newspaper Publishers and Editors. And it's referred to generally as the Cross of Iron speech, just FYI. And after we get off this phone conversation, Matt, if I have time, I will play it for you. It's just a minute-long clip. I'll play a piece of it for you. Yep. So, Matt, finish your thought, and then we'll play Eisenhower for you.
Okay. The other thing was you mentioned a few of the culprits as far as global climate change is concerned, and you seem to be very knowledgeable about the causes of climate change. I want to ask you a question. I saw some clips that because of the climate change is what causes the ice caps to melt in the Antarctic and other places, which complicates the Earth's ability to cool itself by reflecting the sun rays back into the
That's correct. It's called albedo effect.
Right. Now let me ask you a question. Now, is the fact that the ice caps are melting complicated to a greater extent that it makes the climate change more rapid?
Yes, that's exactly what happens. It's a rapid feedback loop, and it's an amplification. So and it's extremely destructive. I mean, you've got. Yeah, go ahead. Okay,
I know you don't have much time. I want to get to this. Okay, now it just coincidentally that I did some research on this. The culprits who produce these things, the chemical companies, I think one of the people you mentioned was Monsanto, and I know ExxonMobil. All these people produce a product called styrofoam. I read on the internet they make very large sheets of styrofoam. They even make styrofoam chips. If these companies were to pool their resources, they could produce a material and put it on flotillas made out of this styrofoam. And we talking about styrofoam. It's white. It's made out.
Yeah, you're talking about restoring the albedo effect. In other words, reflecting sunlight out. And I've seen articles about that as one kind of geoengineering. There's just all kinds of side effects and secondary effects, and you don't know how it's going to work. And one of the problems right now is that because the Arctic has lost so much of its ice, they're now having cyclones in the Arctic, 100, 150 mile an hour winds up there that are busting up the ice themselves. And, you know, if you had, millions of square feet of lightweight styrofoam, you'd have a serious problem. So, Matt, I got to run, but thank you for the call. Keep thinking. You're thinking good here. I'm assuming Nate has had time to grab a picture of Dwight Eisenhower. So here is former President Dwight Eisenhower talking about how much it really costs us to be in a state of readiness for war, how much a bomber costs, how much a warship costs, whatnot. Here it is.
Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. The cost of one modern heavy bomber is this: a modern brick school in more than 30 cities. It is 2 electric power plants, each serving a town of 60,000 population. It is 2 fine, fully equipped hospitals. It is some 50 miles of concrete pavement. We pay for a single fighter plane with 500,000 bushels of wheat. We pay for a single destroyer with new homes that could have housed more than 8,000 people. This is, I repeat, the best way of life to be found on the road the world has been taking. This is not a way of life at all, in any true sense. Under the cloud of threatening war, it is humanity hanging from a cross of iron.
That's President Dwight Eisenhower, the last honestly elected and frankly honest Republican president that we've ever had. We have 1 minute to the end of the show. Corky in Hilton, New York. Hey, Corky, you got a quick one for me?
Yeah, I do. I'm glad you got back on to Barack Obama and how Trump is trying to destroy everything he did. His first thing out the gate was trying to get rid of health care. That's Barack Obama's signature issue. He's trying to erase him because he embarrassed him so bad at the Correspondents' Dinner. Did you listen to that again?
I agree. I sat in the room and watched Barack Obama humiliate Donald Trump, and I thought there's going to be hell to pay, and I think that's what we're experiencing right now. I think that was the moment when Trump decided he was going to get his revenge.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's had nothing on his mind ever since. We can't get anything done because he hasn't gotten that get back even yet.
Yep, and I have a feeling it's not going to go away. He's not a man who lets go of grudges. Corky, thanks for the call. Spot on. I think you nailed it. And thank you for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be broadcasting all this week from Portland, then I'll be back in D.C. next week. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. Really, it wasn't designed that way. It doesn't work that way. It requires you. We require you. This nation requires you. So get out there, get active. Peg, you're it. We'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.